Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
In my association with Project Blue, they definitely withheld information.
The whole fleet of them look on the ASA. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely.
All right, guys, welcome back to Total Disclosure. Tonight, we are live across multiple platforms, and this is, for me, a big night. It's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. I've been discussing having Michael Herrera, who many of you may know already as a UFO whistleblower and a Marine. He's been on the Sean Ryan show. He's been on Jimmy Church. He did a couple episodes on Gaia. I've been waiting for this interview for so long. We've been talking for so long. We've, grown friends over this time. And tonight we're going to really, really get into it. And I really hope that you guys enjoy this interview. I'm not going to waste too much time, but make sure to like, make sure to share, make sure to subscribe. And when it hits the audio feeds, share. Leave us a 5-star review if you can, or whatever you think the show is worth. And then if you can step further, support the show by becoming a member. All the links for our advertisers, all that is in the description below. And I'll fix that in editing for the edited version. Right now, I'm not wasting any time. My man, Michael Herrera, how are we?
Good, man. After a few rough days of food poisoning, I don't wish it on anybody. So, I apologize to everybody. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this, including myself. So Friday would have been a better day for me, but obviously having to deal with that. So, and one thing I want to say, Tyler, people like you are the reason why disclosure is going to happen. It's not going to be from the government or Congress or Senate or anything like that, or even the president. Is going to be from people like you who are deciding to put the truth and the words out there, because that is what's more needed. Everybody's going to expect the president to come out to the podium and say, hey, guys, ETs are here. That's wishful thinking, but in reality, that's not going to happen.
It's not.
And we kind of understand, us being in the front line, so to speak, on how why that would not happen. There's a lot of variables in play with that. My wishful thinking is, hell, bring them up to, hell, I'll even provide security for these beings, just to get everybody to see them and all that. But,
you'd be the man for the job. That's what I'll say.
A couple other people I know too. So, but yeah, so everybody kind of, it's been a wild ride this past year. It's going to continue to get wild. It's going to continue to keep losing hair. So that's kind kind of the reason for it. But, it's just, this is where we're at. This is what I believe is going to be the center point of the dam breaking open. And all of a sudden, this is just going to come to a head. There's more people daily that are having experiences that are within these programs, that are whistleblowers themselves, that are wanting to tell the truth. So 2024 is going to be a good year for this, but it's going to be a rough year. So
yeah, listen, I wrapped filming in I know this has nothing to do with this. I wrapped filming in Salem this weekend on a project I've been working on, and I ended up doing a live reading, which I'm gonna release on YouTube, like a live medium reading. And she kept saying that, or like I asked her after the fact, but there's a tidal wave coming, and she doesn't know if that's literal or something to look more into. Like, is it a tidal wave of information? Is it a tidal wave of perspective? So I think in the next 1 to 2 years, a lot is going to change, not just in ufology, but for the everyday person. And your story, when I first heard it, Michael, I mean, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, I need to talk to this guy. I desperately need to talk to this guy. My life won't be fulfilled until I do so. And that's when I set out on my journey. So I know you've been on some other shows, but I want to start with your early career, your early life, why you joined the Marine Corps, and really start the conversation there and get, who is Michael Herrera?
Well, this day and age, I'm an entrepreneur. I own several businesses. That's my focus this day. I love having, I like being able to provide for my wife. I like having dozens of Rolexes. I love having supercars, stuff like that. So it took a very long time to get to that point. And I lost everything multiple times. I mean, everybody thinks that once you strike, hit the nail on the head with success, that it's something that's going to continue to happen. That's not how it works. You got to keep busting. You got to keep grinding. My days are usually 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days before I'm home. And that's just as a business owner. That's also going to the gym, taking care of myself in the best ways that I possibly can. But I will say the Marine Corps, I believe, helped me immensely with that kind of discipline, because it is something that you can typically pick up. Just, granted, naturally, you're going to have the willingness to do that. So me going in the Marine Corps, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to fly the Herrera. That was my thing. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but unfortunately, my eyesight wasn't that good. They wouldn't allow PRK, or they wouldn't also allow, LASIK at the time was basically experimental. And, to fly around in something that's going to be anywhere from a $40 million to $135 million jet, and you having, boots on the ground that you're going to be responsible for dropping ordnance to protecting those guys. I mean, anybody can make just one little degree of an error, and that can get, people killed. So I understand 100% why, obviously I wasn't able to fulfill that. So being infantry was the next bet on that. And I mean, I wanted to do a job where you basically couldn't go into civilian world and do it. I didn't want a desk job. I didn't want a job that, it kind of bit me in the ass as far as transferring that skill set from.
I was gonna say, you kind of went the other way on that one, huh?
Yeah, I mean, but you have to think outside the box. One of my things is, for heavy equipment, forklifts, for example, they're not sexy. They're not going to get you laid. They're not something you're going to pull up to the street and be like, oh yeah, check out this. All the purpose of those things is just to basically run a business and help make money. So I provide companies with assets like that, construction equipment, and then private security. Obviously, there's people out there who need protection. I've served a lot of people in that business that were high profile people professionally, and I was able to network accordingly to that, which plugged me into being more successful. Success is networking, guys. That's how this works. You get to know people who may need to, need some of your assistance or service. That's where you have to become very successful with that. A lot of people try to put themselves first. You can't do that. I learned that the hard way, so don't take it from me as far as, saying that it's going to be easy. So, and then obviously firearms manufacturing, I do a little bit of that. I haven't done a whole lot this year on that, but last couple of years have just been crazy busy with stuff like that. So what I've been mainly doing is manufacturing for my own private security company. So if I've got employees that are going to basically go on mission with me, then at least I'm able to provide them and issue them something that ultimately they can be responsible for if they just choose to damage it. But yeah, so infantry in the Marine Corps, there's a lot of discipline. It's not an easy life by any means. It's not like Hollywood where everybody thinks that, it's hardship. It's literally a bunch of other high testosterone males in all together. Some of them have been through combat experience that want to basically, there's no way better of putting it, is that they want to make your life hell so that way you're mentally prepared to go to combat.
Right.
Real job. That's what infantry is. And so having this whole politically correct establishment, which we see a lot of stuff happening, you can't have that in the military. So there's a lot of people I know that they're still in, and they kind of relate to me how that changed and how things are kind of softer. But when you're talking about warfare, that's not a fun experience. That's not going to be fun for anybody. And if anybody thinks it's fun, then you're going to be a psychopath. I'm sorry, but there's nothing about that.
So in your time in the military, you I mean, like you said, it taught you that, oh God, why is my camera on? It taught you that structure, that structure that you needed in your life. It taught you, it instilled that in you, right? And it also, I mean, you're a patriot, right? You love your country, you served your country, and I mean, infantry, while it might not be glamorous, it is. I mean, your boots on the ground. Your first, if shit pops off, you're the first one there, especially the Marine Corps. You are the first one to get there and the last one to leave. So in the Marine Corps, I mean, were you ever into like UFOs? Like, did you ever get into that stuff at any time in your life? Like, did you ever wonder, was that ever part of your life?
No, so when I was growing up and I was a kid, my dad used to watch movies like that, and he would watch some scary fucking movies that really scared me as a kid. So I was like, okay, this isn't real. I'm happy for that. So that was kind of where my mindset was. I used to criticize people before this ever happened, that, you're crazy, and obviously everybody knows what I've blown the whistle on. I mean, that's obviously something that gave me clarity as to that, yes, humans, I should say, or mankind has this technology and they've been using it for several years. And we also got it from someplace or somebody, right? It's not like, I'll put it this way. If anybody was to look over the past 100 years, as far as technological advances, what has really changed? Is it trucks? Is it cars? Is it combustible engines? I mean, one of the first vehicles that was ever made as far as a car was an electric vehicle. It was a battery-powered car. All right. And this was almost in the 1800s when they were making this kind of stuff with cars, right? With this idea. So then locomotives, obviously, with steam-powered engines, things like that, so those processes have really not changed. Everybody thinks that a new iPhone or a new computer or some new television or some new gadget in your car is new technology. It's not. All it is regurgitated, something that's been refined based off that technology. As far as what's current right now, maybe it makes life a little bit easier, but you guys have to understand that everything now, when you look at what us civilians get, now think about what the military gets. Think about the technological advances that comes with that.
We always show, we always show our greatest and latest in the theater of war. I mean, that's where it's mostly developed for, either the theater of war or space travel. That's where we see the biggest leaps in advancement, at least in material science, I would say.
Well, and we're talking about material science. We're talking about science that's not necessarily public, right? There's only a few people who are read into stuff that may be on a classified program that people may be, as far as a few senators and congressmen, and maybe even the president or maybe some White House military officials may know about. But for the grand scheme of things, military technologies, as far as sophistications, as far as observation equipment, things like that have been researched for decades. You know, you talk about remote viewing that the CIA program was looking into
Yeah,
to try to find people.
absolutely.
You know, and there's more people coming in full contact with that. You know, we don't know anything in the world. We don't know anything. And all I'm going to say is this: the only thing that we know as people is what we're exposed to daily. Somebody who, you know, plays football professionally is going to know that world better than any of us put together, because that's his life. Somebody who's a race car driver, somebody who's a mechanic, you know, so your world is basically what you put yourself into.
Absolutely.
You know, so my journey so far, I will say that the biggest lesson I've learned was be careful with what you wish for.
Because
You
you
know,
might just get it.
you know, and
Dun, dun, dun.
it's something that I wasn't expecting to come forward in a way that it was going to reach a lot of people. I knew it was going to wake people up. I know it was going to disturb people. But
Yeah. Well, back up. Sorry to cut you off, but let's back up, because all right. I want you to take me back now. So if I understand correctly, because I guess I don't want to assume that everybody knows your story by now. But so we'll get to, I think we're going to get to the Disclosure Project 2.0. And before that, I would like you to set the scene and walk me through what happened in 2009 after a terrible, well, I think it was one of the worst that region had seen, at least in a long time.
correct.
There was an earthquake and a subsequent tsunami that
Correct.
took place. How do you get there?
Well,
are you still enlisted at the time? Are you not enlisted? Are you reserve?
no, I was enlisted. I was full, you know, I was full battle rattle, so to speak, right? You know, so I was a part of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, and that's
Okay.
basically a forward deployed unit that would basically do any kind of humanitarian missions, any kind of security operations, anything. Let's say if there was an area that had coalition control, something with U.S. assets, something with friendlies, we would basically be the responding force. Let's say if there was an embassy that got overran, we would be the guys to basically go essentially end the threat and pull the people out and assure that their safety. But most of the time, what happens in that part of the world, there's a lot of chaos that happens with natural disasters. So essentially what happened is the first hit was the Philippines, which got hit with a typhoon that knocked a lot of power out. I mean, it made a lot of people, it killed a lot of people. It was a pretty nasty event. The whole 7th Fleet, which is the one that's attached to, or I should say the 31st Marine Expeditionary uses to basically trek us around that area, had most of their assets go to that part of the world as far as the Philippines goes. So there's people who have been confused with saying that what I experienced happened in the Philippines and what happened in Indonesia. No, nothing happened in the Philippines that I blew the whistle on. That was all in Indonesia.
Right.
So as they concentrated most of the assets there, we were the only ship that was routed all the way to the far western side of Indonesia, which got hit. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Indonesia is the second largest terrorist capital. They do a lot of training there. They do not like Americans, as far as if they're really brainwashed into the idea that they want a lot of Americans to die. All right. So they train people there. They filter them out to whatever part of the world. I mean, Afghanistan, Iraq, that's just basically the playgrounds of where they're sending people to. It's not necessarily Afghans. It's not necessarily Pakistanis. There's a bunch of people who went out there. There's Chinese, there's Koreans, there's Somalians, there's anybody who wants a piece of the United States. Even Chechens are out there, you know, so that's how they basically do it. So they have to have areas to train. And essentially, we kind of went in knowing that, yes, it's the second largest terrorist capital in the world. It was basically kind of the talk. So we ended up getting briefed on the ship, basically talking about what we're going to be doing. And then they also mentioned that some of Barack Obama's family members were there.
Oh, God.
So they had a SEAL team that was there, a platoon. At least that's what they kind of told us a little bit. And basically they're going to be the ones that were to go in and basically help get them out and extract them, and that would have been it. But so for us, we weren't nearly plugged in, because obviously something like that, they're going to use more specific, more specialized people to go do that. SEALs are some badass dudes. I know a couple of them, and they're phenomenal guys. They don't go around telling people that they're a damn SEAL. They are people that just fly under the radar and just they're good about what they do, and it's a job to them, and they love what they do. And so I respect the hell out of those guys, especially seeing how badass those guys can be in person. So we essentially ended up, we were being one of the first groups to go off that ship, which was the USS Denver. And we flew out to basically a little airport. I believe it's called Tabing Airport. And we staged there. And then some of us basically, we were waiting to get word. This is what I'm assuming anyway. I was not a pilot. I wasn't somebody who was executing this mission as far as planning, all that kind of stuff. So I was a saw gunner by trade. But they ended up giving us M16A4s because, one, we were providing security for an LZ, and that's basically what we were going to be used for. And what ended up happening is we ended up taking off. And I wish I had the exact coordinates of where we landed, but like I said, I'm not a pilot. The only reference I have is literally looking outside the back of the helo and seeing the direction change of where that ocean is. Right. So, I knew that we were facing north, based because, obviously how we were looking into things, but then obviously having to see that if you're seeing more land, obviously you're facing more south. If you're facing the ocean more, you're going to be ended up southwest to west to, anything like that. So we ended up going to a hasty LZ. They used the CH-53E Super Stallions that we flew in on to get to the most remote areas that could not be basically got to by any kind of vehicle such as trucks, because of the fact that these areas that they were going into were washed out. It wasn't the case all over the place, but the way that we end up having to go in there, we basically, because we're Marines, we have assets that basically allow us to do missions, such as having helicopters, especially transport helicopters. So we basically landed this hasty LZ. There was barely, I don't remember anybody being there.
Can I stop you?
Yes.
For anyone who doesn't know, because you mentioned it a couple times now, a hasty LZ. I know what it is, but just really quickly, could you describe what that is?
Hasty LZ is not a well-planned designated area that's going to be marked off, that's going to have all security and everything, that all the bells and whistles you'd think. A regular LZ is going to be something like an airport or something that's designated that's already been cleared. Hasty LZ is, oh crap, we're going to land here. We're going to have to, it's just something that's very, how do I put it? I don't want to say
last second. MacGyvered.
Something like that, so it's not well planned. It's just something that, better get ready and just make sure, so it's kind of more on that level. And when we got to this LZ, I don't remember anybody there. I remember that we were stepping off, and our first thought, at least the person that was with me who was in charge of the whole thing, was like, we as Marines, you want to basically have the element of surprise for one, but two, you also want to have the most tactically sound plan that you can come up with and be in the most tactical position you possibly can be. And fortunately enough, elevation is one of those keys, because if you're at an elevated platform or a position and you're firing at an enemy, one, you can observe things a lot farther. It's a lot easier to see down than it is to see up things, right? So we decided to push to this slope. It wasn't very steep, it was just a slow little grade. And it was probably about 300 meters away from the actual LZ. And we pushed, because basically the areas behind us where we kind of assumed that we're already kind of, protected and secured, because obviously they have action going on back behind us, right? So we end up getting passed up to this tree line. And all of a sudden, we're kind of like just looking around. And I've got a camera, by the way. And I'm taking pictures, I'm taking videos of, some helicopters that were coming in, which are flying low. They're not up high.
You had a camera?
I had a camera with me. Oh, yeah. This is the first humanitarian mission I've ever done. As somebody who's a boot Marine at the time, you're going to sit there and take pictures and, show your family and friends that you did something in your career. So I had a picture with me, or a camera. And when I turned around to basically look and see where the other side of that slope is, that's when we had the surprise of our lives. So I had my camera and I saw something that basically was turning colors. And our view is obscured because there's trees, right? So you don't see like a full shape of anything. You just see something moving and changing colors. So I snapped some pictures of it, took some video. I tried to zoom in as far as I could with it. And then I put it in my dump pouch because I was a saw gunner. And typically we usually has dump pouch to retain our magazines. You're not dumping your magazines on the ground and then having to go to the armory and say, oh, I don't know where my magazines are. So I put them in there. And then we all looked at each other because we all finally saw it and we're like, what the hell is this thing? And we, could have been a building, could have been something like that. So that's what we're kind of thinking. And we decided to go down a little bit and investigate it. And
so it all started from you seeing a bright lights is what you're saying.
It wasn't bright lights at all. It was the color changing of the object.
Well, the color changing, I should say. Not the bright lights, but
it was going from,
the changing.
It was going from a light matte gray to a dark matte black. So anything that's kind of going in that color, especially when you're talking about having vegetation around it, you're going to notice it like a sore thumb. So I don't, I've had questions about this, especially with the kind of tactic that they would use to do something like this is just very weird. And so we end up going down and went and investigated. And when we got to basically a clearing that, because it kind of got narrow, we're stepping through bushes, we're stepping through trees, we're making sure stuff's not getting snagged onto our weapons or anything like that. And we come to a clearing that starts to open up. And when it starts to open up, you start to see this whole shape. And it's just sitting there. And something that is really weird about it to this day, I have never, and I mean, I will never see this again, probably unless it actually comes to full disclosure and they're actually showing everybody that of this technology. But I have never seen anything in my life, because when you see a helicopter hover, it's not perfect. It's going like this. There's wind, there's oscillation, there's stuff like this. This thing was just stuck there floating. And it was rotating clockwise. It was rotating clockwise. It looked like an octagonal shape. And you can see the corners on it. And you can see kind of where like there was some rivets and some basically some sections, like some panels, right? And it was making like this octagon shape. And it was rotating. And as it's still going those colors, right?
So it's now, I want you to really, really take us back to that moment. So it's locked in the air.
Yep.
But it's oscillating at the same time. And from that oscillation, you garner a view that this is an octagonal craft. And at each point, it has a different glow, like different colored light.
So the lights did not illuminate until this thing took off.
So that's later. Okay.
That's a little bit later. Yeah. So this thing, as it's turning and rotating, it's only producing a little bit of a hum. The only way I can describe it is something that sounds like a guitar amp or something that sounds like a freaking transformer, some sort of hum. And there's been people who have tried to recreate that noise, and there's been a person who has helped with that. Joey, that's not my name. If you're watching this, thank you for your help.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's
so good.
He's got me in touch with people I never thought I'd get in touch with, trying to help with this and do all that. So he's a very good dude. Very blessed to have his expertise and have his attention to detail on things. So if you're watching this, thank you. And excuse me. So you know this thing's hovering right there. Excuse me. So we see this. We're looking at each other. Because we're in a tactical column, which basically means that if you're imagining a point here, you're kind of like. A tactical column is one of the most beneficial ways to actually move in a tactical position, because you have literally Marines covering every kind of view that you can have, doing 5-meter, 25-meter checks. Your head's on a swivel, so you guys have basically interlocking fields, and you can pretty much see everything. The only time it's kind of a pain is when you're in the back, having to always constantly turn around, checking, making sure. So as that was going on, we decided we're moving closer, and we were maybe about 150 meters out from that craft. And that craft was big, right? It was massive. My estimation was about 300 feet. And the reason why is because the CH-53 Super Stallions that we flew in on are the biggest helicopters that the military has for transport right now. They measure from nose to tail about 100 feet. So what I was estimating is that you can actually fit 3 of these things underneath of that craft. And that's what I told Arrow. That's what I've told everybody that's interviewed me. That's what I made my official report to everybody who's, vetted me, who has screened me up and down, who's ran backgrounds on me, who's literally, I've went through hell as far as the vetting process to tell this, even to, the Pentagon, of course. So, and having something massive, but it feels like it's so weightless is just such a very creepy thing to see. It's very creepy. And
so you see this thing, and it's doing something you've never seen, you didn't know was possible. Are your first thoughts, that's ours? Or that's not ours?
My first thought was, what the fuck is this? I'm not going to, I'm just going to be blunt. And I didn't think anything of it until we came in contact with these operators. Right. Now we're in a tactical column. So imagine there's 2 lanes here of Marines, right? So kind of, like I was demonstrating, these guys were in a way that they had 4 on each side. And they basically enveloped us like this. So imagine we're right here. These guys came out like this. And they already had their weapons on us. When we're patrolling or basically doing anything, it's
weapons down.
Weapons kind of down, right? Unless you know that you're going to go raid a building or do anything that's going to be combat, that's when your weapon's going to be up. You're not walking around, especially if there's civilians around, if there's kids. I mean, if there's anything that could basically, you don't want to shoot anybody, you don't have to. So you're keeping your weapon safe. It's also a weapon. It's not yourself. There's things that happen with weapons that can make them go off. These things have been through deployment so much. There's things that it's a lot of wear and tear on guns. So this is the most recommended safety that you could ever have in a firearm, is your finger and knowledge of it. So essentially, these operators was a team of 8, but they were split up in 4. So essentially 2 fire teams is what the elements were being. They had their weapons already on us. So they told us, don't raise your weapons. Don't fucking move. They basically swarmed us so fast, but they were in kind of like a crouch, not really crouch, but they were so low, but they were so planted, and they were moving towards us so aggressively. And first the thought was like, okay, maybe this is the SEAL team and something like that, right? Because that's one of the first things that we kind of talked about in the wardroom, was that there was a SEAL team that was going to be there to help with, HVT, HVI extractions. So obviously it wasn't. Makes sense. It obviously wasn't the case, because 1, these guys were not SEALs. 2, SEAL teams, I mean, they kind of organize the way that they dress, everything like that. You can tell that they're SEALs. These guys were wearing all black. They have black, I'm not going to say camouflage, but it was something that was, black gear. They had black IOTVs, which is a infantry outer tactical vest, or individual, something along those lines. I don't know that acronym too well, but that's what we call them, as IOTVs. They had stuff that was very similar to that. They had no insignias, no rank. They had nothing that would identify who they were. They didn't have their faces covered up. Typically, they were releasing their face. They had ball caps. They had M4A1s with a quad rail system that had a PEC 16 and had an ACOG, which is a step up from the RCOs that we had. They also had some sidearms, which I'm assuming were either H&Ks or they were 6 hours. There were no Glocks. I don't bag on Glock, but I know a lot of operators these days who, a lot of them use Glock, but a lot of them use SIG. A lot of them like H&Ks more specifically because they're kind of more feasible for what they're doing, I guess. So at that point, we all looked at each other, and they told us to get online, essentially, just, get on a straight line. And that's what we did. And they told us, don't fucking put your hands down. So they're holding us at a gunpoint there. So they have a guy that is basically positioned maybe about 10 feet away, who's off at a standoff distance. There's been some interviews that Dr. Greer has done and everything like that, where he's told people that they put guns right to our head. That wasn't the case. These guys were at a standoff distance because it's easier to go like this than actually be at a standoff distance and try to rush somebody who has had a good distance that can sight in and just shoot you.
Right.
You know, these guys are professionals.
So
That's
they were calculated so much so. And you know, this is not taking anything away from you, because I want that to be very clear. You guys are a group of highly skilled and trained. Just a guess. How much money do you think goes into each soldier, each Marine?
well, it's millions.
So millions. So you have at least a group of millions of dollars walking around, and they are trained to the best of their ability, and they are the best of the best. You know, the Marine Corps is often known for, you know, producing talent. So they were so calculated that they were able to get the drop on you without you hearing at all what was going. Like, you didn't hear them coming until it was too late.
No, they were already sighted in. So I got all these, you know, armchair generals that say, "Oh, I would have raised my weapon." Yeah, good luck to you. You probably would have been 6 feet under, or probably as one of these missing people. You know, if they have that mentality, the next traffic stop they get into, try to reach for a weapon while a cop's pulling you over, and tell me how well that works.
Right.
You know,
you're dead before you even think the thought.
It's the same thing with us too. If there's somebody, if we have a vehicle control point or a VCP that we're manning, and there's somebody in a vehicle and we already got the drop as such as a low ready, that's all it's going to take. It's only 2 movements: flipping the safety off, aiming, and then firing. And if you're close range enough, you're not having to basically just sit there and get a perfect sight picture. All you have to do is basically just raise it up in that direction, and you're going to hit whatever you're going to hit. You know,
anyone who's seen Star Wars knows, when you got the high ground, you got the high ground, right? So, all right. So they're telling you at this moment. So they've got you, and I had a detail wrong when I reported on it. They did not have you on your knees. They had you standing, hands down, and they've taken your weapons off of your persons at this point.
You know, we had M16A4s. We had 180 rounds, you know, so we had 6 magazines total. So 5 in our vest, 1 in the weapon. Obviously, we were conditioned for. We didn't have a round in the chamber, obviously, because this was humanitarian, and it was something that basically can discharge a weapon and engage. You know, so they had their stuff already primed, ready to go. But if we're going to raise our weapon, one, there's no round in the chamber. That's just suicide, right? If we're going to sit there, cock it up, charge the weapon, and then put it up, it's still going to take time compared to people that already have you sighted in. You know,
exactly.
So, you know, and coming to find out who these guys are, and we know who they are now, you know, at least their backgrounds. You know, we don't know who these guys are particularly individually as people, but we know what kind of backgrounds they have. At least people who go to these programs, which we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and so the thing I really want to talk about, or not really want to talk about, is you did mention how you knew there was a SEAL team in the area. At what time do you realize that this is not them?
Well, because one, there would have been some sort of IFF indication of friendly or foe. That wouldn't have worked that way. It would have been a lot different. One, we didn't have comms. That's the other kind of problem. Okay. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, you know, it's a perfect world. Military should have comms all the time. There's a lot of Marines I know that went to Iraq and Afghanistan that didn't have comms on patrol. That's why the next best thing is hand and arm signals. That's how you communicate. That's how you relay up the chain what's going on. Typically, there's other methods. If you have night vision, you're going to go up to a point and you're going to turn on your IR illuminator and flash a certain amount of designated times that only you would know between that CCP and also whoever's on post to relay to the information to say that you are that force who had the briefing to say, okay, we're going to flash it 3 times. The guy will flash it 2, and then you flash it 1, or you do it in reverse, or you do whatever you guys brief it to do. You know, so there's methods of doing that. There's not a perfect world, and that's just unfortunately how the military is. It's very underfunded. I don't, you know, the whole politics in the military, I don't agree with it. I think especially the Marine Corps, you see a lot of stuff, mishaps happening with equipment like helicopters, is because it's underfunded. They would rather send hundreds of billions to fucking Ukraine than to sit there and take care of our own guys.
Right.
Reliable equipment, you know, so that's kind of the problem. All of our stuff's built by the lowest bidder. We have the hand-me-downs from other branches like the Army, so our stuff is not nearly as nice as other groups that have very good funding.
Well, and this group was clearly out. I mean, so you're sitting there. I'm not. I keep saying sitting there, but mind you, when I say that, I mean you're standing there at gunpoint, and you're loudly being told in very vulgar language.
Yes.
That if you move, we will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Like there's no question about it. So in this moment, are you thinking that you're gonna die? And when do you start looking at the UFO, or I think we can determine it's an IFO, that we've identified it as something as part of this program, but it's a UFO. What's going through your mind as you're being, basically just held at gunpoint?
Well, the problem is, as it's in the background, you mean, because you have people literally pointing their weapons at you, they're yelling at you, that are literally telling you they're going to kill you. So you have two things you're paying attention to. All right. Paying attention to guys that are literally holding you up at gunpoint. They stripped us of our gear. They took our weapon, because we had brass to the grass is what our magazines are, down in the vest. So when you pull it out, you're able to pop it in and then hit the side of it. Right. So it's very quick. We spent hours training this way. So they take our magazines out, they kick them to the deck, they kick them far out so you can't reach for them. They take our weapons and they take the magazine out. And the way that these guys function, these weapons, was like the back of their hand. These guys were so skilled with this weapon platform. Now, typically, if we were condition 1, we would have a round pop out of that chamber.
Right.
But we were condition 4. So when they pulled the charging handle to the rear, they obviously saw nothing in there. And they, again, going through each of us doing the same thing. These guys, I knew for a fact at the time, were former military because we had our IDs in our left breast pocket. That is a Marine Corps order. That is typically how it's always been, and it's still to this day. And they took them out of our breast pocket and tried to take pictures of this thing with things that look like a modern day cell phone, like something like this, right?
And can you tell us the date again, just so people understand the significance?
So this was October of 2009.
So smartphones like we have, like he just held up, are not what was being touted around in 2009. This is to show you that these guys were operating with not only upgraded technology, but UFOs and I mean, it's blows me away. It blows me away.
Well, and I was thinking that's that going on too. Like the only thing that we could really recognize besides their weapon platforms and their gear, of course, right? They had something else that they were trying to scam with our ID. And it reminded me of something called like a BATS system, which is for biometrics and tracking. So we were taught in the system, at least when I was going through training and all that stuff. And all it does is it takes picture of your retinals, takes picture of, it can do biometrics. That's what it's there for. And it also takes pictures. So they're trying to scan, these IDs with this kind of stuff because that's what you could do. So at the time, it's okay, where the hell did they get this? And it came out that year too, because we've done, Joey, who's not my name, he's done a lot of research on trying to basically, hey, does this look familiar? Does this? And there's been some great things he's pulled up and says, okay, this is when it came out, which was sequential to the year that we deployed. So we did some training on some similar stuff even at that point that never made it out. But, and that's just how it is. I mean, maybe it gets phased out because it's archaic compared to the new stuff that they have that they put into. So that's kind of the only indicator, but obviously the mannerisms, the language these guys used, the way that they sounded was like how we would sound as Marines, as military personnel who wanted to rough people up.
So they had American dialect.
Just like how you and I are talking. It's not Eastern European. It's not Russian. It's not Swedish. It's not German. I've got a very acute ear to accents. I know what accents are. I speak fluently in German as well. So I know what it sounds like. and these guys were talking like how you and I, like English was their first language for sure. So,
And so they were calculated to the point where they could disarm a group of Marines. They have you at gunpoint. They're clearly working with some technology that is far above your pay grade. You're watching this UFO in the background. What's going on with that?
okay, so mind you, we're going back and forth. Okay,
Right, of course.
Situation here, and then obviously the situation, which both are unbelievable as equal, right? We're looking between these guys and this craft. This craft has not changed its hum. It's not done anything. The only thing that changed was obviously there was a platform I was hovering over, and it wasn't organic. It wasn't anything a part of the jungle. It wasn't a concrete slab. It was nothing like that. As we're facing this thing, there's some trucks that are coming up from basically our left. I would say probably 11 o'clock position, maybe 10 o'clock position is where these trucks started coming from. And there's only 4 that I recount seeing. There may have been more, there may have been, but I only recount seeing 4 because we're going back and forth between these assholes and this craft. So this truck comes up and then it basically banks off and starts heading to the craft. Now, it looked like an up-armored version of an F-350, very bulky truck, all blacked out. And when it was driving towards us, the thing I recognized on the headlights was next to it, which were something that you'd see like on a Humvee that would be outfitted for night vision. Because sometimes if you're going to be driving out at night, you have your nods on. You're not going to have your high beams or your low beams on because you don't want the enemy to know that you're coming, even though you have a loud-ass vehicle, right? So they don't want to see the lights coming from distance. So
Right, that makes sense.
These trucks had the same thing. They had some bulky tires on there for the terrain, obviously. The thing that stuck out the most on these trucks, besides they had these Pelican cases that were in the back, which were only 2 of them that I saw. They had these containers they were pulling with a trailer that was about the half size of a shipping container. And it had a cylinder on the top, on the front part of the top. Excuse me. And it was black as well. That cylinder, when I first came forward, because there's some people who are confused about this, and every interview I've tried to do is just try to break the confusion.
Yeah,
I had told the Pentagon I thought it was drugs. To this day, I thought it was drugs I shouldn't say to this day, but till the day that I came forward. I even presented at the Disclosure 2.0 saying that my hypothesis was that it was drugs. Because in my understanding, especially being in heavy equipment industry, kind of stuff like that, the only time you'd ever see oxygenated stuff is when you're shipping, produce or some goods or drugs for the matter, because that's what a lot of them do. So typically that's what my assumption was. And obviously with what I have been learning, which we'll get to that point later, it would end up being something else. And this isn't from me seeing anything because I didn't see the containers open. I didn't see anybody in them. I didn't see any drugs in them. My hypothesis was that it was drugs. So they, 4 of these trucks basically go onto this platform. So I didn't see how they went on the platform. I didn't see how they actually unloaded or did anything like that because we're still focusing on what's going on.
Right.
So, the last truck, I should say, at least the one that we saw, ended up going on that platform. I don't know if they went, I didn't see that they were still on that platform. I didn't see if they aggressed off the back end or whatever, however they did it. But all of a sudden, that platform on the bottom just started to raise up. And so we're going like looking at these guys still, which by the time this happens, they're kind of over here. So movement's going to catch your eye. That's just how your eyes, especially your peripherals, that's how you're going to notice motion. And that's what happened with this platform. And the platform started to raise up. It made no sound. There was no change in the hum or nothing like that. It literally just rose up. The craft kind of sunk down like this. And this thing went to the bottom of it and went kind of like it went inside and receded a little bit. And as that's going on, all of a sudden the whole craft itself starts to move up. As it's rotating, as it's changing colors. And then the only difference it did was on every corner of this craft, There was a light that illuminated. And the only colors I can recall is red, yellow, green, and blue. Those are the only ones I can remember seeing on this thing as it's going up, as it's rotating. Doesn't change the hum in it. It clears the tree lines. And mind you, in jungles like this, trees are very high. Some of them are very triple, like what they call triple canopy jungles, right? So there's very layered, right? And some of them in this area kind of wasn't really the case, but it was enough to be at least high enough for me. I hate heights. So this thing started to raise up. And when it got to the tree line, when it got over the top of it, this thing just shot off very fast. Didn't change any kind of hum, didn't make any noise. It literally was like a blackbird blur that just moved. That's just how quick it is. And
so could you, sorry to cut, I didn't mean to cut you off. Would you say that that so aside from the electrical hum, it showed all of the signs of, I don't know if you're familiar with Lou Elizondo's like the observables. So it had relatively no noise. It shot off with no sonic boom. And it was, like I said, using some sort of alternative propulsion system. Is it safe to say all those things?
correct.
Wow.
Now here's a crazy part about this, because this thing's massive, and obviously how fast it moves. Obviously it didn't make any sound. It didn't break the sound barrier. There's coconuts on the top of these trees. Not one of them blew off. Not one of them moved. Didn't even flinch. Nothing. All right. Now, if you're experienced when it comes to aircraft and when they fly low over vegetation, you're going to notice that vegetation is going to move because you have exhaust wash, you have rotor wash coming from a helicopter that's blowing everything out, right? So fighter jets, when they fly a map of the earth, you're going to see movement from the trees. You're going to see movement from a lot of stuff. I mean, they'll shatter windows if they're going fast enough because of that sound. So seeing that happen was just like, holy shit. Now, mind you, we're already in a holy shit situation as it is because of these guys, right?
Right.
So it's just compounding onto the fear also, because all of us are scared. I was petrified. I was scared. I thought I was going to die. That's literally what was going through my head. So
while you're watching this amazing thing happen,
oh man,
you're
it was
like,
amazing. It was not amazing.
well,
I'm
sorry.
In retrospect these days, yes, it is. But at that time and up until this point, it was not amazing. I wish I'd never experienced that, but having the support that I do, I mean, this has been rough. This is not enjoyable. This, being a whistleblower is a very hard place to be. It's not an enjoyable thing. I don't like I don't like being in the shoes. So when they ask people why the hell more people don't come forward, I know exactly why, and I can tell you why. It's a miserable place to be. I've taken a lot of arrows. I've taken a lot of heat. I've gotten a lot of praise, which, I don't necessarily care for all that. I love positive stuff, which is great, but I've been taking arrows, and I'm going to continue to until this all comes forward, until this all gets resolved. And that's my mission. I don't care what John Q. Public, who's sitting on his chair, who thinks about me. And if I'm living rent free in his mind, then so be it. I'm going to be focusing on what my mission is, which my business is, my income, take care of my wife, and make sure that obviously I'm going to provide the peace that I have enough to hopefully, which has been lately, connecting the dots for a lot of people. My mission was to get the government to take my word and to trust me and to look into this. And a lot of them have. A lot of them have on the back end of things. I've heard that, which has been great.
Yeah, we're going to get you to, Tim Burchett was on the show. He's a friend of the show. And, I know you and I spoke about a project about getting you two together. So, we're going to make things happen. And the future is definitely bright. But you're right. You're absolutely right. I definitely misworded that. Coming out as a UFO whistleblower is not like, no one wakes up and is like, I know what I want to be today. I want to be a UFO whistleblower. Like, it's not a good.
No, it's not.
It's not good. Look at David Grush. Speaking of that, while we're on on that topic, do you know David?
I do. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Him and I talk. So he's helped me out in a lot of ways. But that's all I'm going to say. He's working on this thing. He's done things on the back end for me, but he's a good dude. He's very solid. Through him, so if anybody is familiar with Jonathan Weygand, he was a Marine in 1997 that came up with upon that crash retrieval that happened in Peru in 1997. He Grush and his associates, because Grush and I had the same attorney for a little bit because we were trying to figure out how to do this human trafficking thing. And that's why his attorney reached out to me, and vice versa. David Grush vetted me, right? Because David Grush, I mean, he's got assets that you wish you could have as a person. So
let's just say that one more time. David Grush vetted Michael Herrera. I think we can end it at that.
Correct.
So if anyone's asking or pondering credibility, let's just leave it there.
Well, why would the Pentagon waste their time with me? Why would the Senate Intelligence Committee waste their time with me? Why would the Special Intelligence Service, which oversees these letter agencies? Why would I have Air Force OSI talking to me? Why would I have Homeland Security talking to me? Did anybody understand that every time I get in front of federal people, that they run my backgrounds, they look and see what I'm doing, they check everything? It's not a comfortable place to be. I'm in a microscope the whole time. All right. And I don't like it, but when it comes to trying to be transparent with this, that is key. That's the only way that this is going to happen. All right. So I can get uncomfortable a little bit if I know that the payoff's going to be huger, which the payoff that's going to happen with this is going to be disclosure to humanity. It's going to be overseeing these programs that are rogue, that are illegal, that are unconstitutional, that are literally murdering innocent people. All right.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of how this works. I mean, these guys craft this subject so much. They make it seem so unbelievable, because let's just say if anybody who's listening says, you're hiking out somewhere isolated and you come across something like this and you try to go call the police or you try to notify the military, are they going to take you serious? They're not.
No.
They're going to tell you to go check in the nearest site.
The nearest psych ward.
That's why.
But that's
how these guys operate. They operate in these ways because the subject itself, since the 50s, has ridiculed itself because that's what they have done. They make fun of it. Yeah.
I mean, I literally just and it's funny you brought up the office of OSI.
Yeah.
Because Richard Doty was supposed to be episode 103, and he actually brought you up unprompted. And someone asked a question in the chat, and we're going to jump a little bit here by just asking this question, but I think it is something that we need to talk about. Why did you come out with Dr. Greer? And why did you make that call to do the Disclosure 2.0 with Dr. Greer? That was your unveiling of your 14-year silence.
Correct. Well, let me ask you guys this question. Did anybody else know anybody who is talking about this kind of stuff that can get whistleblowers in front of people? He's the only one that I knew of. And as a matter of fact, I met him in 2017 when he did a presentation here in Colorado. And I had to buy a book of him to get in front of him to tell him that I had information, that I had experiences. And, he kind of shrugged me off at first. But when I hinted military industrial complex, as a former Marine in that got his attention. So he literally stopped signing books, stood up, and I didn't realize how tall this freaking guy was.
Is he?
He's pretty tall, so it's same with David Grush. David Grush is a monster too. So, but yeah, he's the only guy that was doing anything like this. So I had told him that, you know, I wanted to tell him some things that I experienced. And that was in 2017. And I had his, you know, he handed me his card and says, don't give anybody my information. Keep this card to yourself. Don't publish it, anything like that. I'm like, okay, roger that. So I stuck it in my wallet. And at the time, which I'm still afraid, guys. I'm not fucking gonna say that I feel invincible with this, because the way I see it is I'm borrowing time. But we're all borrowing time with our lives. And that's just why I'm just trying to press this and obviously try to get somewhere with this, because who knows? This whole government protection of whistleblowers, I'm not going to say that it's full of shit, but there's nothing that literally physically stops somebody from pulling up next to me in traffic, that knows who I am, that knows the cars that I drive, that's a part of these programs, that wants to murder me. There's no federal agent in my car where I'm going. I don't have the presidential motorcade treatment going on with this. I'm out there just driving. So who's to say that that doesn't happen? Do I expect it? I don't necessarily expect it, but am I prepared for it? Yeah, I am, as best as I possibly can be. You know, I've had some harassment, I've had some intimidation efforts, which, you know, I've reported to Homeland Security, I've reported to, among other people that took it seriously, took videos, took pictures, you know, did everything like that. And, you know, it hasn't happened in a bit, but, you know, it doesn't stop them. These guys that they can do whatever they want, you know. So I'm in a spotlight in a negative way when it comes to that. And if it's for truth, if it's for justice for people who have been wrongfully murdered and killed over this stuff, because that could have been me, that could have been any of my guys. We could have been murdered, and that has happened.
Any point at that night, any point of that night, you could have, for all intensive purposes, you shouldn't be here telling this story.
Correct.
I don't understand, and I hate to even bring this up, but why they left loose ends, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
There's been some people in the intelligence committee that their hypothesis is that they wanted us to see that.
Interesting.
I don't know why. That's their take on it. I mean, these guys know that this stuff happens to an extent, you know. So with that, it's unknown. These guys, you know, they're allowing me to live, and it's not comfortable to say that, but that's the reality.
Right.
You know, these guys, I mean, it sucks. Like I said, guys, this isn't enjoyable. I mean, I'm losing fucking hair, for Christ's sake, because of this kind of shit. You know, it's just how it is. So, you know, I didn't approach Greer and tell him anything until, you know, because when we had an NDA that we signed. Basically, so let's go back. I'm gonna kind of end the Indonesia aspect. So after this craft departed, these operators told us to face the hill. And at that point, I thought we were done for, because typically when that happens, they're gunning you down.
Yeah, I mean, dude, how could you set the scene another way? They're telling, oh my God, the only thing that would have been going through my head is, this is it. Well, I'm going to be in a ditch.
That's exactly what went through my head. And I'm glad that's the only thing that did go through my head at that time, you know? And it sucks because, you know, here I'm thinking, you know, as this is going on, as this belief is going on, then you have the personal thoughts. What is my dad going to think? How the fuck is, you know, like, and just thinking about my dad, my family, everything like that, you know, and it sucks to be in a position that way where you can't do a fucking thing. You can't do anything. You're literally, you know, these guys are, you know, they're ruthless. They're very skilled. I mean, I'll tell people about their backgrounds to an extent when we get to that point. But essentially, after they told us to face the hill, so I'm standing there and I'm kind of like, I feel doomed, you know, I feel defeated. And I just see this sling come over, like literally over our Kevlar and onto our body. And I thought they were going to choke me with it. But what they did is they basically took the sling and they adjusted the rifle on our back to basically where the buttstock was right here, and the muzzle was pointed down. So they did that, and they tightened the hell out of it, because you can't, if you're trying to fumble and get that thing off, it's gonna be hard. At the same time, they get our magazines and they basically put them brass up to the sky, so rounds are facing the sky. So like I said, typically we will give you brass to the grass. They had us brass to the sky, which if you're trying to take it out and fumble it and put it in a weapon, a little bit harder to do. You can still do it. It's just going to take a little bit extra time. Now in a firefight, now in a situation that's tactical like that, that kind of small, microseconds, if you will, is going to be very long and extended compared to just doing things how you're normally trained to do. So they had told us, after they did this with all of us, they told us to go ahead and walk up the slope. So they told us as we were walking up the slope not to turn around, not to look at them, or they'll fucking shoot us, they'll kill us. It's easy to get lost out here. We can throw you out of a helicopter. I mean, they were hounding us with that kind of talk.
So just
breaking you down. I mean, you're already humiliated as it is because of that. At that point, I wouldn't even say humiliated. I mean, it's just humiliated is more of a nice way of putting it. So when we broke the top of that hill and got to where we originally were positioned, we hightailed it back. We ran really fast. I fucking hated running. I hate running to this day. That's why I got into bodybuilding, because I can walk on the treadmill and stay in shape and still be able to do all that kind of stuff. So, we all hightailed it back. We had our weapons on our back. We ran to the LZ. There was a little bit more people there, but there was this gunnery sergeant that was there that was pissed. And he was pissed because we came back too early and our weapons obviously were on our back. So when we got to that area, we were basically taking our weapons off of our buddies and handing them to us, and then slapped the magazine in and just basically waited until we can get out of there. And we finally ended up getting out of there. We turned our weapons back in, obviously. So a few days later, mind you, so the other thing too is obviously my camera was not found. I don't know how the hell they did not find it. They didn't stick their hands in the pouch, but they end up recovering it later. In my assumption, I don't know how they did it, but a few days later, we ended up going to Subic Bay in the Philippines to basically relink up with the 7th Fleet. So we had some liberty at the time, which is like time off. And we had about 3 or 4 days, if I can remember correctly. And so, okay, let's just kind of forget about this whole fucking thing, because it's rough. None of us were, it's not an enjoyable experience by any means.
So you're kind of just trying to live like whatever normal life, but also with that lingering in the back of your head.
I'm gonna be honest with everybody. Here's the thing: I was not a perfect Marine. A lot of Marines are not perfect. I've had people slander me talking about me going UA. Yeah, I did go UA. I went UA because my dad had told me that if I was going to leave, that he was not going to no longer be there. He lost it. He tore all the ligaments in his knees. He was a mechanic longer than I've been alive. He did a brake job on a Subaru, and you're not supposed to get on the concrete floors with your knees. Usually they use pads. He didn't do that. He tore all the ligaments out. Jeez. And his wife was basically fucking abusing him. Her son was trying to beat his ass. So I had that in the back of my mind, even on a lot of things that were happening. So he had told me that he was very depressed, and he didn't, and yeah, I paid for it. I got shit talked to me. I had everything that you can think of. I was the shit bag because I decided to stay there with my father for an extra 4 months and make sure that he was mentally good, instead of sitting there going back and having to deal with the fucking conditions of the Marine Corps, essentially.
What does UA stand for?
Unauthorized absence.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. That clears that up.
Yeah, I mean, I published.
So you spent an extra couple days with your dad to make sure he was okay.
Months. 4 months, 120 days. Now, I kept in contact with some Marines when that happened, and I mean, this was early on in my going through training and all that, right? And so at that point, I was like, well, okay, my dad's been there when I was a kid. I'm gonna get a little personal, and I don't enjoy talking about this, and this is probably the only time I'm ever going to talk about this because I don't enjoy talking about it, and it doesn't make me feel any good. You know, my mom left me when I was 7 years old and packed up my shit in 2 trash bags, left me at a babysitter's, didn't see her for 7 years. 45 minutes after being at the babysitter's, my dad comes and gets me and says, we're not going to see my mom ever again. All right. So at that point, at being 7 years old, my dad has been there for me through thick and fucking thin. You know, my whole thing that I am doing as an entrepreneur and something like that is I want to make enough money where I can set my dad up for the rest of his life, where he doesn't have to work ever again, buy him his own shops, whatever it is. He did a lot for me when I was a kid. My grandparents did too. You know, so when it come to the point where my dad told me that, I felt obligated enough to sit there and bite the bullet and go through that and stick by his side and try to help him through that. And I did. And you know what? I have no fucking regrets. And I paid for it. I didn't lose my rank, but you know what? They delayed the promotion. They put me on extra police duty. They put me on restriction. You know, I didn't get, you know, I kept in contact with obviously whoever I needed to at that point because I didn't want, I busted my ass to become a Marine.
Right.
It was one of the hard, you know, in retrospect, at that time as a kid, essentially, as somebody 17, 18 years old,
right,
that was what I aspired to do ever since I was a little kid. I didn't want to just throw that away. They gave me the choice to get out or continue. And this was talking to the current, the sergeant major at the time. And I told him my situation, which, I mean, he screamed at me first before he realized what happened. Right. And then every single higher up that I've had that I've talked to, such as a sergeant major, or even a battalion commander, has said, you know what, we have done the same thing. Family is first in our eyes with that.
I think anyone would have, anyone in your shoes would have done that.
Well, and being, you know, having my dad as the backbone of us as a kid, as taking care of us, is doing whatever he fucking could. Yeah, I don't regret it one bit.
I commend you, brother. I commend you. And then you continue, instead of just leaving the Marine Corps because of the shame that might come, the arrows you might get flung at you. No, you chose to go back and take the heat like a man and continue on with your duty. Yeah, I respect that.
I told the sergeant major that I wanted to earn my medals. I busted my ass to become a Marine. I played football in high school. I had to drop close to fucking 70 pounds to even join. You know, so there was things that I had to do to become that. And I wasn't going to let it just go to waste. I didn't have a horrible time in the Marine Corps, but coming, you know, after doing that, coming back into it, yeah, everybody treated me like shit. That's just how it was. Do I blame them for it? No, because they had their minds made up. You know what? That makes them feel better. And there's a lot of them that fucking resent me to this day because I'm successful. Because I can do what they can't afford to do. And you know what? Because I know what it's like to lose shit. A lot of these guys are afraid to lose shit. They're afraid to take the fucking risks. They want to take risks in ways that suit them. But when it comes to entrepreneurship and being on your own and being responsible for hundreds of employees, guess what? If I fuck up, they all lose their jobs. They all, the customer base, as a matter of fact, also does the same thing. So it's a reputation. So I've done things enough to lose it. I've been homeless before for 6 months, living out of a car, had my dog only with me. I had a fucking big screen I was trying to sell at the back of my fucking car, trying to get money. I ended up getting a job. You know, I was taking showers at 24-hour Fitness, sleeping in my car, getting enough money to literally supply food for myself and my dog. You know, so I've lost things enough to know how to gain it back. That's what real success is. It's not sitting here just saying that everything's pleasant and every entrepreneur is going to say the same thing. It's fucking hell. Entrepreneurship's the hardest job I've ever had. And it's going to continue to be because you have to think outside the box. You spend a lot of money to make money. And then, you know what? And it's not going to change. So, you know, I'm not going to throw shade. I'm not here for that. These guys can think whatever they want to think. I know the guys that were with me, they don't want to come out and they don't want to be acknowledged. They're not really big fans of me. And I understand why, because they're going to get looped into that too. And some of these guys are still in the Marine Corps. So I'm not going to tarnish their reputation in that. because that's ultimately what would happen. And it sucks. Like I said, it sucks being in this position. But I've got people that try to throw shade because I'm discredited because I went UA. It has nothing to do with discredit. Literally telling everybody what happened. That's it.
Yeah, and it's just like it's just like what we see with Grush. They try when you speak out against, and now that you're coming out and telling your story, they're going to use whatever they can, any wrinkle in your career. They are going to exploit that. And I mean, I assume you knew that.
Yeah.
When you
100%
told your story.
But guess what? I've had thick skin ever since I was a kid.
My man.
I had to. I got thick skin as an entrepreneur, as a Marine especially. That's just how it's going to be. Yeah, it really has to have thick skin to survive in this world. And especially when you're trying to make a business happen in a good way, you got a lot of competition. You got a lot of people trying to basically do the same thing. They'll go on your fucking Google review pages and leave reviews trying to slander everybody. I don't have my employees doing that. I don't do that. I go and tell the truth on reviews because if there's a place I've been to that's been great, I want other people to also enjoy that too. And I have a soft spot for small business because that's what we are.
I like that.
You know what I mean? So we have to take care of each other. Big chains, they got all the financial support. I don't have any of the stuff that they've got. Everything's got to be self-funded. I don't have a line of credit. I don't have anything like that.
Yeah, same here, man.
You got to be out of your own pocket, and everything's going to be funded. And the way that I always tell people is like, yeah, what made me successful is, okay, you guys want to know, I'll give you guys some entrepreneur advice. Write it down if you want to, or anything like that. You get a job that pays you 6 figures. You live off of half of that. Then what you do is you use other money to basically invest in other business that you can do on a side gig, right? Something that's going to be on the side, flipping equipment, flipping cars, flipping whatever it is, finding something cheaper, making a couple dollars profit off of it. You're going to build it up, over time. You have to stay consistent. So get a six-figure paying job, live off of half of that if you can. I understand you got kids. I understand you got other stuff that's going to. Maybe you have a wife that doesn't work or a husband that doesn't work, somebody like that. But in my reference, that's what made me successful with that, was making 6 figures, living off half of that, and then supplying the other money to basically fund the other operations that I was doing. So that's how that works. And basically you're using one to supply another, then you start getting income from 2 streams to where it gets enough. Then you can start a third one. But however, the only problem is we have what's called a woman in a red dress. The shiny object that you see that, oh, this is a good business idea. But problem is you got holes in the buckets on the other stuff that you're working on. So you have to refine, spend the money to refine, make those other buckets no holes in them, and then concentrate on the other thing that you want to. Everybody says to be a millionaire, you need 7 lines of income. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. You don't need that much. You don't need that many lines of income to do that. You just have to be well-versed. And passion goes a long way too. You have to be passionate about what you're doing.
Confident
and passionate. You're going to get your, business is war in itself.
Absolutely.
So, it's one of those things that it's tough. I love how tough it is. But I hope that other people, I would love to be the guy to give people business advice and teach them how to do this instead of talking about UFOs, instead of talking about black teams. That's what I'm really passionate about, is entrepreneurship and businesses.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait to come see, what you've built, man. I really can't. And I can't wait to show the world.
I'm not taking credit for it. I got a business partner who's done a lot of great things with it too. So it's not just me, but we put our heads together and we made something fucking beautiful, and it's going to continue to grow that way.
And and it's inspiring that, from because the traumatic event that you did experience, to put a positive spin on it and to try to do something better, to tell your story, to further disclosure, but all the while still building your own empire, right? It's just, that's the American dream, brother.
Well, I
You're
don't think
living it.
it's the American dream. I think it should be everybody's dream. Everybody wants to
Right.
be rich. Everybody wants to be successful. You know, the thing I'm going to tell you guys, more money, more problems. Get a lawyer too. Get some
Yeah.
lawyers, because that, I mean, that's the other thing. You get a lot of money, you can start getting lawyers. I got really good lawyers, you know,
So let's we're going to be kind of transitioning here. So the event happens. Where we kind of stopped off was the camera. Now, first off, I didn't even realize, I don't think in all of our conversations, hours and hours of conversation, mind you, did I even did I remember or take note of this. So first off, you had the camera. On that camera, did you take any pictures of the craft or
yes,
anything?
that was when we were on top of the slope.
But you did take a picture of the craft.
Yeah, I took video and I took pictures, and then
Oh,
after
what the
was a thing, and I slung it in there. So in the back of my mind, I'm literally like, okay, well, I'm not crazy because we literally got pictures and video. But you know, so just to put you guys as a perspective in my shoes, mind you, because of me going UA and obviously getting put into a different company and having that black mark on me, essentially, is not being the Marine that, you know, kisses everybody's ass and does all that.
The commercial Marine.
How do you know? So having the trust in my chain of command, do you really think at that point I had trust in my chain of command when all that shit's going on? You think I trust any of these guys to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, you're not going to think I'm crazy because you already think I'm a shitbag because I went UA. So why am I going to bother to tell anybody that's in charge of me that this happened?" And I didn't feel confident with that. I didn't feel confident at all. You know, I had to be at this place because that's what we were told to do. You know, so at that point, that's when I felt all of us, and a matter of fact, too, were in the same boat as well. Nobody's going to take us serious. Everybody's kind of, you know, how do I put this? I don't want this to sound negative. Marines are kind of carbon copy of their leaders, right? They say the same thing that their leaders do. They're just basically regurgitated versions that you get seniority, you build up rank, and you start doing the same thing. You still have the structure, so you're not really changing your mindset a whole lot. The only time you really change your mindset is when you're actually doing your job out in country or going to combat.
Right.
You're regurgitating the information that you're taking from your seniors that are teaching you and passing it to your subordinates, right? So everybody almost essentially is like a carbon copy. You're kind of like not told to think. You're just told to do. You don't really think. You know, you think when you're doing your job. There's no way I can describe it. So, you know, having that instance of not having the confidence in the leadership to just basically say, okay, well, yeah, you're a shitbag because you went UA. We're not going to take you serious. And all of a sudden, because you think that you talk to them in confidence about something that you know is serious. I know a lot of other Marines that had things happen to them that wasn't even on this level, but just something that was personal. And that leader that was in charge of them goes and tells the whole damn platoon that this person's dealing with that, even though it's personal. You know what I mean? So it's something that, and they got made fun of for it. You know, so it was one of those things that, you know, yeah, I'm not going to have confidence in that. None of these other guys did. You know, the only confidence we had was obviously just keeping our mouth shut and not saying anything, and then obviously getting to a point where we were able to have this happen now, even though it's been a long time. I mean, that's for a reason. I don't enjoy talking about this. This isn't something that makes me happy to do. This is something that I feel compelled to do because it's the truth and it needs to get out. And it's been getting out. It's been unraveling people's minds. It's been questioning people, you know, questioning themselves. It questions me, which great hit. Go ahead and do that.
Right.
But the issue is now that there's one, you know, because there's been other things that have similar happened that's coming out all of a sudden, talking about these programs or whatnot.
Absolutely.
What this relates to. So the camera itself was in my locker on ship. We were going out to Liberty for a few days. Now, mind you, we had to report back to the ship. Okay. So, needless to say, I get back that first night and my camera's on my rack. It was in my locker. It was locked away. It had a combo lock, you know, all that kind of stuff. And my lock was not busted. It was not harmed. I don't know how the hell they opened it. But I had another battery in that locker. So when I got the camera off the rack, the battery was gone and the memory card was gone. But the camera was still there. So I took, you know, okay, maybe the data saved on this. take the battery out of my lock, unlock it, pop it in, try to turn on the camera, nothing. So at that point, I kind of went to the other guys and was like, hey, did you guys have anything disappear or kind of like get messed with? And they're like, yeah, our phones. I'm like, what happened to your phones? Well, they're gone. So I left my phone back in the rear at base. You know, I didn't take it on ship with me because obviously there's no signal out there I could use, and there's no reason to have it besides taking pictures. But that's why I had a camera, because it took better pictures than the phone that I had. So
yeah, back then most people would that was like the digital camera. It was the boom. You know, when you because now you didn't have to use the film, and they were pretty good quality too. Much better than what was on the cell phone at the time.
Right. No, it's 100%. That's why I decided to do that way. You know, and I didn't want to lose my phone, you know, because I had everybody's contacts in there, and obviously phones are getting expensive. So, you know, I had a Sony Ericsson MP3 phone, which was the shit back then. So you could play like music tracks, and it had like the gold buttons on it. And it was like a phone. I was like, man, this is awesome. So I used to work out and listen to music with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a good phone. So I didn't want to mess it up. But then when I got back to base, I ended up leaving it in some clothes and washed it anyway. So that ended up bye-bye. So when I got back to base, I had a new phone to begin with. So yeah, plan didn't go as well as I thought. Smart me.
So the other guys get their phones taken. You get your basically, I mean, all that's needed to be taken is the SD card. And now you have no. So someone literally, I mean, an organization, that organization came in and tied up the loose ends. And, you know, in a way that I guess I didn't have to kill you, because now, I mean, your story sounds so crazy that if you go sprouting it out in 2009, like you said, you're going to end up at some sort of mental facility, or you're just not going to be taken seriously. Back then, this was not the, like congressional hearings weren't happening.
All of that would have happened.
Right.
Not the hearings part, but everything, such as, you know, they like to lock people up for that kind of shit.
Yeah.
You know, so, and especially military career. I mean, look how many pilots have seen stuff in the sky, and all of a sudden their careers are completely ruined because they reported it. You know, and you know, come to find out with this organization, they have their fingers in everything. They got people in the military that are at the top that literally filter orders down and nobody questions. And that's how it is. They got people in media. They got people in government, obviously. They got people everywhere.
I'm reminded, and I know you and I privately have talked about this, and now we're going to kind of transition to your search. So you've told other parts. I mean, you've told this story, right? We're not going to get hung up on what happens from the sighting to you searching. We're going to kind of jump to the Disclosure Project and you searching for truth. I think you've gone over all the other details in depth. And if anyone wants to really hear that, I really, really highly recommend the Sean Ryan interview you did. It was like, you go into so much detail there. So let's skip ahead to your search for truth. And how do you, like, is it always lingering in your head? Like, I'm going to find who those people were, or in the last couple of years, is it seeing the other people step forward that really got you to, like, I'm doing this. I'm going to sacrifice what I need and tell my story?
No, I was not originally that heroic. I didn't want to be public about this. I had told Greer that. So I watched Sean Ryan's show with Dr. Greer the first time he went on. And he talked about, you know, because I signed an NDA, and that was with a gentleman who was perceiving himself as an Air Force lieutenant colonel that called me up to the CP that was empty. There was nobody there. It was on a weekend. There was no duty even present. And he basically said that we weren't allowed to talk about it, or we could be executed, we could be put in jail. And I gave a sketch that I did to the Pentagon. And I remember, obviously, the silver oak leaves he had on his collar, and he had some jump wings. That was the only thing. He didn't have pilot wings or anything, but he had jump wings. And so when Grush vetted me, and among other people, they said, okay, that makes sense because that means that he was intelligence. That's an intelligence Air Force officer, which segments into, obviously, what people are finding out these days is that Air Force intelligence is segmenting into these other programs. So that was the gentleman. I don't, to this day, I don't know who he is, but I gave a description. I literally did a full detailed sketch that I provided Arrow and a bunch of other people to basically say, hey, if you guys can take this, put it in the system however you can, and this is what the guy looked like. And so he was the one that made us sign the NDAs. I skimmed over it. The only thing I can recall seeing is TSSCI and Indonesia. Those are the only other things. I fucking signed it because I was afraid, because this only happened about a month prior. And then all of a sudden we get, obviously the camera goes missing, or at least the SD card or the memory card, and then the battery, and then the Marines' other phones. And then so like, okay, then it's just like trickling this harassment, like, okay, it's not out of you're not out of the woods yet, right? So I just sign it and just leave, right? And I asked him, sir, can I ask who you are? And he just looked at me and just didn't say anything. And they just pointed to me. So I walked out the door. I'm like looking behind me and to give him a proper greeting. And it wasn't outside, so I didn't salute him or anything because he's a higher rank.
Right.
That was the last of that incident, at least, which would span from that. So that was kind of the thing that was held over my head for years, because I'm like, well, I don't, these guys obviously know who we are because they literally tracked us to this point. They obviously know my name. They know my social security number. They know pretty much everything. They know
your blood type.
So
they know everything about you.
Why am I going to go, something with that kind of extreme? Why am I going to go through the lengths of doing that? But then when they talked about kind of having these protections in place, and Greer, if you ever get him on the show, you could ask him, like, did he have the intention of going public? I had no intention of going public. I didn't want to. But then I started thinking about it. I started thinking about it in a sense that, what, if there's any other people who have witnessed what I've seen in similar instances, maybe people have been murdered for it, which come to find out there has been, maybe I can be the one to lead the path. Maybe I can get other people, to kind of follow suit and go behind the scenes and tell other people what I experienced and what, if they've encountered similar things, such as a military force that was doing this. And so far, it kind of has happened, but it didn't happen in the way of incidental witness such as myself. It happened in the way of these people in this program that are doing these operations, such as the operators coming forward on the back end and providing details to people in the government, in Arrow, in Pentagon, Washington, D.C., just a bunch of suits and ties, and some other famous people. I'm not going to give their names.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, I know personally, you are the third person on the show that has given testimony to Arrow. I do want to just ask, how long did you give testimony to Arrow, and did they seem like they were interested in at all?
Okay. It's a great question. And, I haven't really went in depth with it. I can't nearly go in depth with the conversation with Arrow because I did sign a non-disclosure about that. The only thing I can tell is because obviously everybody knows Dr. K was involved with that, and I did meet with him in person. I will tell you that one of the gentlemen, I'm not going to give who he is, that was in there with me, we ended up becoming really good friends. He was there with me the whole process. Very good guy, very high up in the government at that point too. He had told me that, because he's been to every interview with Arrow with other whistleblowers. And he says that he was very surprised to see that most of them were taking notes about what I was saying. because most of them weren't doing that with other whistleblowers, which is bullshit. I mean, if you're in this trusted position, excuse me, to take, to do something to investigate this, I would expect you to have a notepad and a pen and writing down key details that you could look into. One of the things that I was really trying to get them, because they printed out satellite imagery of the area, and we're trying to figure out, narrow it down. Now, I wasn't the pilot. I didn't plan the mission. I don't know specifically where we went. The only thing I can recall is basically where the helicopter, with a point of view being in the back, where the ocean was facing, and that's the only thing I can go off of. So I was, kind of looking at the terrain, maybe trying to see, but obviously this is 14 years ago. So there's things that have changed since then, vegetation, I mean, you name it. So I asked them and I said, do you guys have the capability, because this is the United States government, this is the intelligence agencies that are literally in this. Could you guys have any sat imagery from 2009 that you guys could possibly provide me? And then maybe I can look it over and try to do that. And I hear crickets. They were interested in obviously the sketches I did because they asked for that. I've got emails of them hounding me, asking when they're going to be done and all this. And then I sent them over through a secure server that they sent over through an email that I had to log into, and then basically upload all the files and then everything like that. And I didn't hear anything from them. And at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe because they were telling me in these emails that, okay, we're interested in actually following up and looking into this. But obviously, almost a year later, we know exactly how that went. You end up finding out that Arrow's a front for this group, among others as well. And what it seems like is they were trying to siphon information from people to see if basically Arrow. This is how ridiculous it is. Some of the whistleblowers I know, they have key locations. They've got assets that they can prove they're at these locations. They've got people in charge that they can name on the subpoena. But yet these guys don't want to go investigate that. You want to know what they're going to go investigate? They want to go see what Fravor saw up at 20,000 feet. Right. That's what they want to go see. They'll investigate the satellite imagery of that. But they're not going to go to these locations that would basically subsequently just blow this whole thing open. They don't care about that. You know why? That's what kind of told me that, okay, these guys, and come to find out that Dr. K is relaying this information to a panel of people of what his findings are. And then the two of those people are two of the gatekeepers for the legacy program that are the bad guys. So obviously people are connecting the dots with that. Now that's all coming out. So obviously what this is going to say is like, hey, they're trying to tell him basically to investigate the shit that they really can't investigate, and then just turn a blind eye to the stuff that they can.
Right.
Done by design. I mean, it's so insulting because it puts everybody at risk. That really came in good faith to put trust in this, to sit there and say, hey, can you guys do something about this? And all they're going to do is no, they're not. They're going to play more into it. So, it's one of those things that's disappointing, but I kind of expected it. But at least, that's why I'm proud to say, before going to stepping into Arrow, going to the Pentagon, that I talked to the Senate Intelligence Committee before, which I signed an NDA with them. I was in a skiff. I briefed a lot of them. There was a couple Congress and senators that were there, and they asked me the same questions, kind of, but they were really, really more interested compared to what Arrow was perceiving to be. And the purpose, the reason why they did it that way, was because if they have the same information I provided them, and then Arrow comes back and says that they got nothing, even though some of these key people took me over to the Pentagon to begin with, they're comparing notes. The job of the Senate Intelligence Committee was to hold Arrow accountable. So that kind of happened to an extent. But there's a lot of red tape that they're involved with too. So it's politics. People are more interested in about money as opposed to doing the right thing. My take is you will make a lot of money doing the right thing. It doesn't have to be this kind of shit. Like, I mean, it blows my mind. Like, as somebody who's self-funding all of my stuff, that's, I'm wealthy. I love having what I have. I work very hard for it. I don't throw shade on people to do that, but I will throw shade that if that is, like, I'm very money motivated too, but it's for the right reason. If it's under morals and ethics, then it's all game. So These guys could do the same thing. They could make money off of this kind of technology by patenting it and then having companies do what they usually do, right? There's a way they can throw spinoffs at this. This happens all the time.
Right.
When it comes to politics, money's a lot different because they're not using their money. They're using your money. They're using money of people watching this video right now. They're using money.
Every single U.S. taxpayer.
That's what they're using, guys. So they're how do you put, God, I'm stuck with analogies today. Some days I'm just on that, but today I'm not. They're basically feathering their own nest, at this point, and they're using taxpayer money to do that. And I've lost confidence in the fact that voting actually does anything these days, because it's all about donors, it's all about money, it's all about lobbyists. That's what they care for, But if anything can change, obviously we know who's been against this. So when it comes up time to actually put new blood into the tank, vote these assholes out.
Yeah, and I mean, you might not want to say it, but these guys like Mike Turner in Ohio, who just so happens to be funded by the same organizations that hold the keys to these programs and this military industrial complex that's been created. They definitely need to go. And that brings me to your search for so you come out at the Disclosure Project 2.0 after years of contemplation and, should I do it? Just naturally, right, in your head. I'm assuming since the day it happened to the day you came out. I mean, that's got to be a big step forward. And I want to address something that people seem to call you out for some reason. The pins you were wearing during the, I know this, I can't even believe we're about to have this conversation, but we said it to each other that we were going to have it. So let's get it out on the open. Why do you wear the pins and what does it mean to you?
Okay. Well, all I'm going to say is this. There are bad apples in every organization. And unfortunately, that happens even as being a Freemason and as somebody who has spent a good chunk of my life into that. I was a Freemason since I was 18. And that's why, I've seen slanderers saying oh, I'm a devil worshiper in the Marine Corps, because I had black clothes. Oh God, that says that I worship the devil. And, we have goats that we sacrifice. Well, I have not seen a goat in a lodge ever since I've been to meetings and all that. Never seen a damn goat. All right. So, the pins, obviously. One, I'm a Freemason. I have pins. I have, obviously, this was a brother that actually got in touch with me. There's that, right? So I don't know if you guys can see that. It might be upside down. All right. I have that. I have a tattoo on my arm. One that I designed, right? It's very symbolic.
Which is the Mason logo.
The square and compass, right?
Yep.
So it actually has a skull here, which represents mortality and immortality. It has the all-seeing eye, right? There's a lot of things around that. It's not the eye of Lucifer, so don't get that in your head. And then these ancient Hebrew is Li. Usually we have a G in the middle of here, and HT. Well, you can't find light. G is supposed to represent generative principle, or what people call God, or the grand architect of the universe, right? Well, you can't have knowledge without finding the truth or light. You can't find the light without finding God or that purpose, right? I have yet to find that personally, but when I do, I'm going to put the G in here when I do that. That's the whole thing. And maybe it'll happen after disclosure happens. Maybe that might be the time that I actually put the G on there. Yeah. As far as what people think, the World Economic Forum, that was the pin. No, that's called the SDG, which is, I'm a member of Lucis Trust, which is an organization with the United Nations. And
so it meant nothing. Okay, when I say this, not that Masonry is nothing. It was nothing to show you were part of some cabal, or it wasn't. You weren't throwing out satanic symbology because you were at the National Press Club.
What it was because there are brothers of mine that are also related to these programs. And it doesn't even have to relate to these rogue programs that are a part of the deep black realm, right? I'm talking about anybody who's in the kind of corrupted side of things that is just somebody who's caught in the middle of it. My inspiration to wear that stuff was to say, hey, if you're a part of what I'm a part of, please come forward and help me with this to an extent.
Exactly.
That's why it is a call for.
That's why.
It's also a call for protection too, because I've had a lot of brothers reach out to me after seeing all my interviews, and they have nothing but good things to say. And a lot of them are like, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew this shit was real. You know,
I knew it was going like, and that, so we have so much to unpack here, because not only in one night do you get the confirmation that and I'm like, I'm oddly inspired to, call to Daniel Inouye, former senator of Hawaii. He's actually one of the senators that Harry Reid went to get the program OSAP started. But Daniel Inouye made that speech talking about a shadowy, fractal part of our government that exists with its own army, its own navy, its own fundraising mechanisms. It operates above the law and without oversight from congressional or any means.
Correct.
And this is so deep that the president isn't even aware it's going on. How do we go up against something like that?
Well, let me explain something to you guys. I've had people ask, "Oh, they could take over the world." They already did. They did a long time ago.
Yeah, look around.
So yeah, well, exactly. You know, they own politicians. They literally own governments. Like, everybody needs to think that, yes, you guys need to be in the mindset that takeover has already happened, because it did. Biden was put into office. I'm not going to get into politics, but I'm going to tell you what I know. There have been key people, including Biden, that have been helped into this position as a way for them to say, hey, we can do whatever the fuck we want. We can put people in charge, whoever we want to. This is all, and like I'm not, I don't like politics. If you believe Biden and you think he's great, I support you on that. You think Trump is great, I support you on that. If you're a United States citizen, I support you. I want you to believe whatever you want to believe. You don't have to believe me. I'm not asking for that. I believe in you, and I want you to believe in what you want to believe. That is the beautiful thing about this country. All right? But I will say that if you're not opening your eyes and seeing what the hell's going on in this world, and you think that that's normal, it's not normal. Everybody says that, oh, us Masons are the ones that are responsible for that. The Illuminati. No, I'll tell you this. In lodge meetings, we have a hard time figuring out who's going to bring fucking pancakes to breakfast. That goddamn organized. Now, I will say this. There are people in our organization who happen to be in very high positions of power. So when people see them with such as the stuff that I've had,
it's more of a brotherhood.
Well, that's exactly it. But the problem is, and I'm kind of going off in the weeds with this, because there has been corporate interests that have infiltrated our brotherhood. And along with that comes money. It's no different from politics. It's no different from these programs. I know the history of how we started to an extent. I know how the CFR was made, which I tried to get into the CFR, by the way, and I chickened out, and I had some sponsorships that were going to help me with being the Council of Foreign Relations, but I just honestly don't have time for it. And I don't feel like donating $35,000, $40,000 each time. That's just way too much. To become 33rd degree, I'm going to have to donate $25,000 to the House of the Temple. I'm sorry. I haven't been nominated to do that, and I don't think I will. And I haven't really attended a meeting ever since COVID happened, because I've been busy with my business. And it's one of those things. I'm not, I love the reason why I was a Mason to begin with. One, because I've heard of the camaraderie. There's a lot of brothers in there that are former military, which is great. I've met a lot of great, phenomenal people. One of the beautiful things about our organization is networking and plugging in with other successful people. I didn't learn this stuff on my own, guys. I picked their brains on how to become successful. It starts with confidence. It starts with literally setting the intention of your life. Putting, brainwaves are very powerful things. So get your brainwaves. And the biggest thing I can tell you guys is affirmations are very real. But the other thing is real is, guess what? You need to start saying that if you really want to be rich, you're already fucking rich. And everything that you start believing that, and you genuinely believe that, everything in your life is going to follow suit. I promise you this because I've done it myself.
Yeah.
It starts up here, guys, and it starts with a passion. That is how you become successful. You literally tell yourself you already have it because your brain doesn't know the difference. Your eyes are literally things that really suck in light, and that's what you're seeing, right? But you're literally, your body is made for the environment of this world, but your brain's on a different frequency, guys. So you start thinking on that frequency and start getting the brain waves. It's going to generate that for you. It sounds fucking crazy.
No, your words,
maybe not as crazy as what I've been talking about for almost a year, but it's very real, guys.
Yeah, your words matter. We've proven that. I mean, you
very real.
Yeah, you probably know the study with the guy and his students. They basically spoke to water before freezing it and crystallizing it, and they spoke words like love, hate, mass shooting, flower, and all the things that would represent good. The crystals were gorgeous. And then all the words that they froze that were bad, that they spoke bad words to, or negatively connotated meaning to the words, the crystals were a mess, and all, they weren't beautiful like you see in the movies, right? Correct. And it just goes to show you that the way the way that you think, and the way that what you speak, how you speak, it all matters to the environment around you. When you're in a pissed off mood, everything's shitty, but when you're smiling, everything's great, right?
Correct.
So I want to, how did this affect you in that way? Because clearly you went through some sort of transformation. I mean, did it have anything to do with the night in 2009? Like, did it confirm? Well, I mean, in a way, when you saw that craft, you have to think one of two things: it's alien, or it's ours, and it's back engineered from alien technology.
And I had said that earlier, that's what it confirmed for me. Was that the case? My success and my mindset didn't come from any of that. That was a negative part of my life, and it still is. It's always going to be. And really what changed was because, I'm getting, again, I don't like talking about this, and it doesn't make me feel good to talk about it, but I had, in January of 2013, I had attempted suicide. I didn't tell anybody about it. I had 1911, my dad bought me for my birthday the previous year. And that's when I lost everything. That's when I was, living out of the car. I was about to start doing that. And I wrapped myself in bed sheets, and I took the weapon, put it to my chin, and pulled the trigger. And I'm still here. And the reason why is because that hammer, literally a couple millimeters, did not come in contact with the firing pin. And mind you, I fired that weapon several times. I put hundreds of rounds through it. Function like a top. I mean, I'm a Marine. I know how to take care of my weapons. And that couple millimeters saved my life. And the transformation happened because I realized at that point that if I had the power to take my life, I had the power to do anything with my life. So that was the catalyst of literally something like you have to die to be reborn, is how I see it. And that was the pivotal point, because then I realized that, I'm the only one who's literally fucking up everything if that's the case. Well, how do I not do that? So I changed my mindset. I started thinking positive. I started doing everything that I wanted to do in my life. The only thing I realized was that I was the one that was stepping on my own dick, so to speak. You know, so it changed my life, and you know, guys, the only way that you get past shit is by taking risks. Bigger risks, bigger rewards. Now, I can't say anything for what I'm doing with disclosure is going to be any risk, because it's a huge risk. And what are the rewards for me personally? I don't get money from this shit. I don't get a payout. I don't.
Yeah,
have
I'm not paying him. Just
No.
if anyone's wondering, I'm not paying Michael to be here.
Take people's money. You want to know why? Because my testimony is not for fucking sale. People want to monetize this shit. They do it all the time to other people. They want to write books about themselves and make movies. No, that's not how this happens. This is the reason why we're in this fucking problem to begin with. You know, so that was the key right there. Is yes, the risk I'm taking is I want our world to change. I want humanity to be better. I want to have better technologies. I want us to elevate as a fucking human race and stop killing each other over fucking material, because material is the easiest thing you can get. Guys, you can make money anywhere. So why do we treat it like it's so hard to get when you literally can do anything to make money?
And
you want to, so here's a side tangent. I wanted to start an app, right? They have these apps that tell you like positive shit every day, right? Like, oh, you know, you'll smash that. You'll get an A+ on your physics test or something like that.
Positive reinforcement.
I want to do a fucking real app that says, you know what, you keep eating those fucking Cheetos, you're going to be a fat fuck. Like that. I want, like, because that is how shit changes, guys. It ain't from, you know, yes, it is from positive thoughts, but it happens to actually be rough with yourself to realize that shit has to change. You have to not be happy with something. If you're broke and you're unhappy being broke, there's other ways to make money. If you're out of shape and you're happy, well, get in shape, work out, exercise. I promise you'll feel better. But you know, that's where it comes down to things, guys. Is money is kind of the problem with this. Now, not everybody's like this. You know, there's a lot of good people in the government, and I'm thankful that I got to know a lot of good people in the government. And if they're watching this, hey, keep fucking pressing on, guys, because I feel like this is going to blow up here soon, and it's going to be good for everybody. But you know, money is the reason why this is an issue. Money is the reason why this is secret. Okay, so that night in particular was, you know, at least when I tried to take my own life, yeah, that was a catalyst for it, you know. And I'd call
that what I'd call that is I mean, I don't know how to interpretate it other than divine intervention. It's almost like something. It's almost like you were meant to do what you're doing right now.
Well, and it's scary you say that, because that's why everything I feel is falling into place with this. And it's really weird to say that, because when I went to Disclosure 2.0 and you know, I talked at Greer's event, and it was nice to talk, and I was nervous. I mean, I was nervous in this aspect. Now, for me, I competed in bodybuilding, so I was wearing nothing but something that looked like a fucking banana hammock in front of thousands of people, oiled up and tanned up, and you know, looking shredded and whatnot. You know, so that right there is a little bit more nerve-wracking than talking to people about an experience
with a suit on, and you know, yeah.
So, yeah, was I talking about something that I didn't think it was going to get much? Yeah, but people needed it.
Dude, I wouldn't say it wasn't much. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you have to look around at what was also happening. I mean, Grush was just coming out. All that stuff was starting to break. Like all the levees were starting to come undone. So I think Greer Greer positioned that conference, that speaking engagement with all you guys. I think he did it at the wrong time. I think if he did it a month later, it would have had such a bigger impact. And honestly, I would have went, because I would have been able to. But your search for truth led you. I mean, there's one thing.
Let me
that there's a okay, good.
So my search for truth didn't happen until literally after I gave my first speech at that event.
Right.
Now,
Right.
mind you, I'm somebody who, if somebody provides for me, then I try to provide for them in any way that I can, because I don't like getting free shit. I work for what I have. I bust my ass for what I have, and that's how I have things. I had told Greer that, you know what, if you're going to cover all my travel to go to DC and be in a part of your event and get us a hotel room and pay for our dinners, which was nice of him to do. He didn't take any money because he didn't pay us, obviously. And I told him that, okay, if you're going to provide for me, then what I'm going to do is provide for you. I have a private security firm. I am not licensed to carry a firearm in Washington, D.C. However, I worked with people when I did security out there for some very important people. And we're talking about political people here too, that they were able to be armed. I said, I can get in touch with them and see if any of them can have anybody help us with just giving us a guy that can be armed. And that's exactly what happened. So I was also security for him too. I took him to his green room, and I got to see kind of behind the scenes on how Greer is and how everything works. It's very complex. It's very interesting too.
Yeah, he's
So,
definitely a guy that doesn't leave a lot to chance.
yeah. So I gave my presentation, obviously, and then there was a break. So I took Greer back to his green room. And I hear his phone go off, and he pulls it out, and I have my wife with me. So she's sitting on the couch. They end up talking about what we want to get for like lunch or something. So we end up having like some sushi and some like fried rice or something. I love rice. Rice is like fucking crack. I love rice. That's my favorite carb. And
it is great.
Oh man, you can do anything.
It's so good.
But yeah, so I'm talking to my wife, and then all of a sudden Greer is like, "Hey, I got something to show you." And so he hands me his phone, and I start reading this message, and it's on an encrypted platform. It's way more advanced than Signal. And in it says, "I don't want to leave Michael hanging with this, but it wasn't drugs in those containers that he saw. It was people." And he told Greer that he wants to discuss with Greer in person of what program that is for and why. And when I say that, when I found that out, my heart sunk, and I started crying, because here I am in a position in 2009 that I couldn't do anything about it. And my worst thing, because all of a sudden they have people in containers, I'm starting to think about human trafficking, organ harvesting. I mean, everybody's heard of this shit. And that's where my mind went.
And no one thinks it's real. Like, people or people, I think people disassociate.
World. It's the most lucrative business in the world. Every government is also in some way allowing this to happen. Why do you guys think that no government's after this shit? It's not. It's by design, guys. I mean, they have the resources to go do this. They could end this within maybe a couple years. But problems is that people are involved with this that we never thought people would be, and it's very concerning. And this, so having that in the back of my mind, and I didn't think of anything like with what I started to learn about, right? Because all of a sudden I started getting this information. So that's where my mind went, and I started like kind of getting very fucking angry, and. And I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, are you kidding me? This is disgusting. Yeah, you're using these kind of assets to literally perpetrate some of the fucking most heinous crimes on this planet, such as selling people off and harvesting them and doing, you think about adrenochrome and all that stuff too. So, I my heart sunk, and Greer read it, and he can see, like, he kind of teared up too, but I was gone, because I'm like, this is unbelievable, and it still fucking sucks to talk about, because it's just part of it still happens.
People, man, it's people.
I don't have kids, but I could imagine if I had children, how I would probably be more emotional about it, and because there are people who are missing their loved ones from stuff like this, and it's heinous. I couldn't imagine doing something like that. I couldn't imagine,
dude. So if what you're saying, I mean, if all this is accurate, then what we're looking at here is whatever kind of organization, right? Using the guise and the cover of a natural disaster with technology far more advanced than what's even remotely possible in our wildest dreams. And they're using it to collect people. Where are they bringing these people?
Well, okay, so
gotta be.
What people have to understand is that these particular people, they are people that are not normal. They're not like you and I. They are borderline psychic. And my hypothesis was that, because everybody asks, well, how do they find each other? How do you know that a psionic person is a psionic person? My hypothesis is that maybe they have a psionic person who does this and literally goes and filters people. And they kind of have, because they're kind of the same, that they know how to identify each other. And they may have technologies that they use to also figure out who's who. I mean, I don't know, but I will tell you that these people are part of a program, and the screening program itself is called psionic predisposition, psionic predisposition potential. All right. So these people, now what you guys have to understand is this black organization, they get their operators from special operations groups. I know the screening process that they do for this. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want it to be public, because then they can try to narrow down some of the good guys that are helping me with this. And that's the last fucking thing I need. So
yeah, we're not going there.
I will tell you that there is a part of this screening process for operators that they test and see their abilities with psychopathic and sociopathic personality. And they fine tune that. And I don't know how they do this, but they will basically turn people who are patriotic, hardworking men who served our country very good and turn them into fucking machines. And they pay them a shit ton of money. They literally are above the law. They can do whatever they want, and there's nothing that stops them. They can do whatever the hell they want. They're the strongest organization in the world because they have technologies that can do circles around our most sophisticated, advanced technologies that we know as blue or gray programs, right? And some black programs for that matter, which black programs are ones that the Congress and Senate, as well as the president, know of. They don't know the details, but they know that, okay, X amount of dollars is going into this program and this is what it's for.
Exactly.
Deep black is where it doesn't exist. There is no records of it. There is nothing literally they're going to show you that,
this is when we start going paperless. No record.
They document it, but it's not the way that you think. Now, I will say this. This whole thing, I hear news commentators talk about, oh, well, Russia and China can hack our nuclear armories. No, they can't. You want to know why? Now, this may be top secret, but, it's been out there before. All their systems are manned by like a floppy disk system since the 70s. And the reason why they keep it very archaic is because if you have anything that transmits topside, they can hack it with a signal, right? Like Wi-Fi, they can hack into. They can hack into anything like that. So if they keep something very archaic that can't be hacked, well, they're safer that way. They're not upgrading and trying to keep up with the Joneses, if you will. And so their systems are manned that way. A lot of these installations are kind of the same way too. They have their own communications arrays subterranean to where they can't penetrate topside, so nobody on a CV radio or any military radio or anything for the matter can intercept the signals that are underneath the ground. These installations are not, they don't look anything that you think they would look like.
Right.
They look abandoned. They look like they are just remnants of the past. Or there's other parts of military bases that if you have a certain clearance or if you're read into something, then you can go to a certain part of an installation and go underground. That's another part of it too. So, you know, this after getting that message, I ended up going back home, obviously. Then all of a sudden I get, invited on the Sean Ryan show, which, Sean Ryan's a badass dude. That's why I got
One
that.
day.
Yeah, that's why I got that picture in the background. My wife got that for me for my birthday. So she blew it up. And, Sean Ryan's a good guy. He's badass. And the other two guys are good too, DC and Eric. So, I didn't think anything was going to come of this. I just thought, okay, I was going to get my, testimony out there and expect Sean Ryan to want to pick me up on a show. I didn't expect any of this shit. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I wake up to a message from Dr. Greer. And he says, hey, an insider from this organization knows exactly what you saw. He wants to get in contact with you and tell you about it, right? So he gave me his phone number, and I sat on it for a while because this guy is a part of the organization that's literally just in 2009 held us at gunpoint.
That you're pissed at.
Yeah. You think I'm going to try to go to the horse's mouth, and then you think I feel good about that? You think I'm going to want to volunteer? Yeah, sure. Here, I'm over here. So that was going through my head, and I was like, you know what? If this guy's legitimately trying to help, then I want to be there for that. So I left a paper trail to some important people of where I was going. And, it was one of those things where I kept having that back in my mind, like, this is it. I'm going into their world, so to speak, in their area, right? And I'm not going to say where I flew into. I'm not going to say where, we met up at. But they took my safety very seriously. And they picked me up in an armored vehicle, which was cool. And the fucking doors weigh a lot. But, you're used to riding in military Humvees that are up armored and other vehicles. So it really isn't a thing. But, this vehicle is cool. So ended up taking me to a meeting spot. And I met this gentleman who, he asked me if I was hungry. So I was like, you know what? The Subway sounds good. So they went and got Subway for everybody. But we didn't eat that until after we ended up talking first. So we go into this room. And it's like a conference room table. And he pulls, it's this like satchel. So he sits down and he has it. And he pulls out this thing that looks like it's like a wand, but it's like a silver brick with like a loop on the top of it.
Huh.
And he turned it on and he starts going like this with it. And he goes over his extremities and everything like that. And he hands it to me and says, go ahead and do the same thing. Just put it on all over your body.
And wires?
Bugs, chips. So I had my phone in my pocket. So literally everywhere else is silent, and it hits my phone and it starts going off really loud. I'm like, oh shit. So he says, what's that? I said, it's my phone. He says, go ahead and put it on airplane mode and set it over on the table and don't reach for it. And so I do that, right? And so I hand it back to him. And then he proceeds to ask me if I'm a 1911 guy or am I a Glock guy. Now, because I told you guys a little bit about my experience with a 1911, I was like, no. So I was like, I like Glocks. So he hands me a Glock. He slides the slide to the rear, locks it open. It shows me it's clear, hands it to me, hands me the magazine, and I put it in, and he says, go ahead and chamber the round. So I chamber the round, and he gives me the holster. So I holstered it in. He says, keep that on your hip. He says, none of us are armed. You're the only one it is. So
what the fuck is going on?
I'm like, well, I'm not fucking John Wick with a pistol. All right. I'm not John Wick by any means.
Right.
But I think if I'm under the pressure, I can definitely, it's already chambered and they don't have a, external safety mechanism like a 1911 would. So you just literally pop it out and aim and shoot, obviously. But
they made sure that you felt in power.
Correct. because these guys knew what I dealt with, because they heard what I had to say. So that them taking my safety in consideration and then arming me in the process, where I felt like I had some control, was refreshing. And so he starts telling me about, we start kind of get to know each other personally, building rapport, which is good because I mean that's how it should be done. I mean, these guys are people at the end of the day. And I'm glad that there's good people in this group. And guys, there's more good people in this organization than are bad. But unfortunately, they have a lot of bad that can still do a lot of damage. And, so they got to be very safe with this. And so we get to know each other personally. And then he says, I'm going to start talking about what you saw. I was like, okay. He explains that these people obviously are taken from areas that are less desirable in the world, war-torn areas, third world countries. Bureau of Indian Affairs is another one. And the reason why is because these black team operators in this organization are not able to access this technology by themselves, at least reverse engineering it, or they can do it that way. But from extraterrestrial technology, they cannot interface with it. So they need people that can. So imagine, if you will, like the United States will go to foreign countries to find cheaper labor sources, right, for manufacturing. This group does the same thing, but they bring them to these installations. So the screening process, which I've talked about, they dub as P3, is literally for that, to see if they have this ability or this predisposition genetically to be able to access this technology.
And I'm going to pause you there because we know now there's people out there going to ask, I want the evidence. I want the evidence. I want to know. Dude, the evidence is everywhere, guys. Gary Nolan is talking about this predisposition, this trait in some people that is different and allows them or may allow them to be able to see things that others can't, or perceive what may be unperceivable to most. Dr. John Mack has the research done there. We know the government has looked into consciousness, and they've spent millions, if not billions of dollars into remote viewing and other psyops, not psyops, psychological based research. So trying to figure out what consciousness is, how to use it, if it can be raised, etc. These are all things that have either been declassified or you can read more into. The evidence is all around us. He is simply filling in the gaps.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, continue.
And I'm not a fan of this, by the way. I don't advocate what this group is doing by any means. I think it's barbaric and I think it's heinous. So these people, these P3s, that's what we will refer to them as, they're provided for. They're not taken against their will. They are literally screened and asked if they want to participate because they're given the lifestyle that they normally would never have in that part of the world. Clean water, reliable heating, air conditioning, food, medical, education, everything that somebody could want as a necessity, this organization provides for them, which is weird. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome to an extent, right? Because you're taking care of, the captors are taking care of these people, and these people are willing, because now all of a sudden they see that they're doing something for them, that they're able to participate in this.
And it's not like anyone, I mean, let's face it, the third world countries that they come from, it's not like the people that would be looking for them have the resources to make enough stink where anyone would even pay attention.
Well, it's kind of that way, but at the same time, I had this question too. Why don't the janitors or the facilities maintenance guys in these installations ever come forward and literally say, hey, I work at this base. This is what they do there. Well, they are a part of that group of people that, they don't have the predisposition to an extent, but they still serve a purpose. And that's what they use them for, is cooks, facilities, maintenance, everything. So they're provided for and cared for too. They're not going to, and these people don't have any social security numbers. They're not American citizens. So, let's just say if there was somebody who's, in power that was to deport everybody, then these guys would go back to where they were. They go back to a less desirable point. So they're not going to give up their livelihood just to tell a story and have it, have it, hit a guardrail in the process of it, because there's other people who are going to really fabricate as much evidence against them to say otherwise, because that's also happens too. Right. So, so I understand, and I'm glad that at least that they're taken care of. But the other thing I'm not happy about is to achieve the levels of hitting the level of consciousness they need to make contact with extraterrestrials. They put these guys on a lot of uppers, a lot of serotonin. And in the endocrine system can only handle so much. And then it obviously starts taxing. Yeah. I've got a biochemistry degree, so that was something that I understood.
Well, so, I also, and not to interject here, but I also know this, being, now I'm an alcoholic, but I was in programs with people who had all kinds of addictions, and the people that are on the uppers, they have it the worst, because they go into these manic, like after day 3, day 4, like it's literally, they call it psychosis, like where you literally you don't know who you are, what you are. You're just like in like this weird autopilot. So it sounds like they keep them at that.
Correct. It's not necessarily that too. I mean, but these I'm not going to get into details from a specific person that I was briefed about who is a P3 that's a part of these programs. What they had expressed is that there's a lot of missing time involved that they can't recount, but they know that they're chipped. They have a chip in their body, up in their back. It's actually 2 purposes. 1, it's hard to reach, and 2, it points up to the sky. So satellites or any technologies that are pinging their locations. Some of them have, which everybody in this program's chipped. Even the operators are all chipped. So just so everybody understands that. Some of them.
Everybody?
Correct. Some of these guys are not. Some of these operators are not. Okay, but they were at one point. So, but I'm not going to go into detail about their situation. But they have 2 different versions. They have a version that registers biological data, which tells them everything about your body, vital signs, everything. Then they have another version which just specifically does location. So these people are basically like cattle. They're like livestock that are chipped. And that's how they see them. They call them pink assets because that's what they refer to as biological equipment. So these people then are drugged. They take them up to a secured site in containers that I saw, by the way. That's how this gentleman reached out, because they used to move these containers around to areas of the world and scoop up these people. So yes, this gentleman I've talked to has been a part of that. And a lot of them are. And they will take them to this site, and they will have them make contact with extraterrestrials, and they literally appear. And they don't, they appear enough to where almost all of a sudden they become like, they build rapport with these beings, right? But this organization off in the distance has their weapon systems ready to go. So it's not all the time that they make contact that they shoot them down. But this one installation I went to, they literally shoot down ET craft 2 to 3 times a year and recover it.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to. I know you've told me it, but it kind of just hit me a little bit harder here.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's barbaric.
These people are calling in. So again, and this is in the report where I talk about it. So you explained it really well. So by A controlling B and by B controlling C, therefore A controls C.
Mhm.
So they're using these people as a bypass, and they're having them use protocols. Let's just say that their protocols similar. Diana Walsh Pasolka has talked about her Space Force guy who's got a bunch of patents. This guy Tyler, who does all these protocols, right? And it seems that in the space program, there are people who have been doing this for years. The symbology is there as well. And that's just a side thing. That's like, again, the evidence, but they're calling in these craft with some sort of protocols.
I'm going to interject you real quick. This is also going to blow your mind. Where do you guys think praying ultimately came from?
Oh, God.
Just think about that. So this goes back a long time. This is where origins of communicating with a supreme being. Hence, these ETs are very supreme to us. We're just humans, and the
words
can do whatever they want.
changed.
So, you know, these operators obviously are dumb enough to not, you know, they can't communicate. All they know how to do is destroy, and you know, these P3 assets also help reverse engineer because they understand the technologies. They can interface with it. They can plug and play, if you will. They have a machine that hooks to them. Now, the machine that these operators use to hook to the psionic person, at the time when this was going on, as far as the imperfect systems that they were utilizing to do this, the best case scenario would happen is that this P3 asset would go into a coma. Worst case is they would die. Now, they have obviously upped the game with this because obviously going to other places in the world and scooping people up costs a lot of money. It also exposes you because you get spotted by, you know, 5 dumb or 6 dumb Marines, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
You know, just in reference. And it costs a lot of time to do that. So they perfected the system enough to where, one, they are trying to accommodate the P3s more often with keeping them alive, which is great. Still frustrates and angers the shit out of me because these are just innocent people that literally had no idea what they're getting into. And then all of a sudden they're doing this. They're literally, you know, and these guys are being misled. They're being lied to. So I have no, you know, I have sympathy for the P3 assets and these people that are trapped.
Me too. Yeah,
I don't have any sympathy for these barbaric assholes who think that this is okay morally.
Absolutely not.
They have laws that literally punish people for murdering another human.
They
have no laws to sit there and punish people for murdering ETs, which, I mean, they're better versions of us in a way. When are we going to do
that? There are so many implications. Not only are you calling craft, so and we know, like, you know, CE5 protocols, lots of people have success with this. It's not, I mean, this is not, and there, I mean, there's a lot more evidence coming out to suggest this.
But I know people who can do this, and you know, they've sent me pictures of stuff that they've done CE5s with, and you know, they're credible people. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And you know,
what if these dumb operators trigger? Now, I mean, I hate to go worst case scenario, but what if they piss off the wrong?
Yeah,
wrong civilization on the other end of that.
Are you talking about them pissing off a civilization which essentially punishes all of mankind by destroying us when it's a small group of people doing it and not all the rest of mankind who doesn't even have any knowledge of its existence that is doing this? Yeah, we all have to pay the price because of these greedy ass people.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. You know, so it's I've never met ETs. Okay. I've never seen an ET. I can't tell you anything about an ET. But what I will tell you is that I'm pretty sure we have never came across all of them. So if we happen to come across a species that's not a fan of us and may have the capability, which all of them have the capability to destroy us with the brink of a thought, but what's to stop this particular race to say, you know what? you guys attacked me, then I'm going to end you.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for feeling that way, but guess what? I don't want to pay for these guys' mistakes because they want to do this. You know, so and the good thing is at least these guys, the good guys in this group know that it's wrong and they were misused, they were lied to, and they're paid a lot of money. You know, so it's one of those things that, yes, I understand in their hearts that this is wrong. I understand that they have a lifestyle that they, you know, these operators, at least these good guys that I've talked to on a regular basis, that share me information that, you know, as far as the P3 aspect, I will get to meet. It was supposed to be late last year was when I was supposed to meet up with one of them with a group of us and watch this go down and record it, by the way, with iPhones, with night scopes attached to them, because iPhones, you can detect if data has been manipulated by CGI or anything that basically would try to falsify a video to say that it's legitimate, right?
Yeah,
so
iPhone is a very great encryption
and that's
software.
That's what they're going to use. So when it gets nice out, hopefully
so what you're saying is
it's not off the
evidence is going to come out of this.
Now, the thing that bothers me about it, because CGI and AI are amazing. I mean, what people can do with these days is just mind blowing. What my fear with this, because this should have been released a long time ago, in my opinion, because who's to say that people aren't going to criticize it? And yeah, this is actual proof of P3 in action summoning craft, but then all of a sudden you have AI that can do the same thing.
Did you see that? Did you see that thing they just launched?
No, I did not.
OpenAI just launched. It's a video. It's video now, and they put up this video of like dogs playing in the snow, and it was, I mean, Mike, you can't tell the difference.
Right,
So
that's scary, and
I'm afraid that this is going to be a little too late.
Correct, and that's what I was saying to these guys too, because the only way that we could really avoid that kind of skepticism is to literally have a scientist on camera analyze our data,
right,
and provide to the people on camera, like showing how everything works with this, that is in fact a real video and not CGI, not AI, nothing. You know, so that way it can provide for some proof. But you know, I agree with people.
I think your credibility enough. I think, and that's what pisses me off is I think you should be the credibility. I think if we can put someone in jail for eyewitness testimony in this day and age, that you or anyone else that could say this is a real video, and then after it, you know, it gets seen by, you know, the analysts and is determined to be real, there we go. Like, why do we need to go further than that? This could possibly force the hand.
It could, and that's why, you know, this whole movement is like playing 4-dimensional chess. It's very hard, you know. So it's one of those things that, you know, you have to kind of think about the negative in order to have a plan and reinforce the positive, so that way it can come out in a way that would be beneficial and not something that can be completely discredited. Now, the thing that we also have to take into consideration is this organization, if they have the assets to do so, and they've done this all the time, is they can fabricate evidence against you. They've done this throughout history. I know of some murders that these guys are responsible for, that they fabricated evidence to basically hide their involvement. And I'm talking about key people. I'm talking about prominent people. I'm talking about certain people, even in DC. So this group, like I said, if that's the point where this happens, they can do whatever they want. It's like I said, it's 4-dimensional chess. So essentially, you know, but everybody has to, and you know, I admit this 100%. Disclosure is not about testimony. Disclosure is about evidence. My story in itself is not evidence. My findings in itself, because I can't physically show it, because I don't want to, I could show people certain things that could lead them to things of finding the truth, but I can't sit there and do that, because then I put these people at risk. But disclosure is 100% about evidence, and that's what makes it difficult to do. And I understand the hill that I have to climb to do this, but disclosure is 100% about evidence. It's not about necessarily truth, you know.
Right.
So, and everybody, you know, like the way that I do advertisement for my businesses or whatnot, people buy with their eyes. Okay. People are the same way when it comes to evidence and having to see things to believe it. Now, I will tell you in an aspect of getting rich, you need to believe it first and then you'll see it instead of trying to see it first and then you'll believe it. It's the same concept. You need to learn how to wire your brain in that capacity because I promise you this world will open up to you. You know, you have to believe it first and then you'll see it. You know, so me, I don't like being in the position I'm in to where I have to take people's words and that there's things that I've seen that I can't talk about, unfortunately. But there will be a point here soon where I can talk about certain things freely and may be able to provide the evidence if the time is right, if certain precautions are put in position that would allow me to do so on the behalf of these guys, because I'm literally the face for this organization, at least these good guys, right?
Right. Not the face of the bad part.
Guys, fuck
that very
them
clear.
as far as I'm concerned. Fuck them as far as I'm concerned, because what they're doing is it's heinous. It's completely, it should not exist.
Sarah does bring up a good point though. And she says, wouldn't they be watching right now or watching what you're doing?
They are. They're 100%. This, like I said, this is 4-dimensional chess. I've got things in position that are keeping me safe.
Good.
That are keeping me able to do this. Now, I can't guarantee you that I'm going to be alive tomorrow or the next day, but I will promise you that I will do this one day at a time. That's all I can guarantee. I'm not ruling it out. Guys, I'm not ruling it out, and it sucks to be in this fucking position. It really does. It really 100% does. And that's why I tell on a lot of interviews I've done, that's why I said if I end up dead, I didn't kill myself. I'm mentally, like life is great right now as far as business and everything like that. Like I'm in a really good
sound mind.
You know what I mean? So if something happens, it's not by my own doing. I'm just going to say that. So it's not off the table by any means. And it sucks to say that. I know, like I've told my dad that before, and obviously he doesn't like hearing that, and especially with my wife, but that's just reality.
It is.
You know? So maybe
I can't wait. I can't wait for the day that, you know, because I know that again, your background, those that help you, you will help them. So when you have that evidence, I know that you'll be back and you'll be willing to share it.
Well, I will be willing to share it when they tell me that the time is right to do that. And the reason being is because there will be things in place to help me do that.
Yes, exactly.
And there's things that have to happen before, which I know very well what they have to do. I'm not going to speak about it publicly. I know a lot more than what I can say, unfortunately.
I know it's one of those moments, right?
I hate it because when, you know, like, you know, for example, if other whistleblowers are talking, like, man, come on, just fucking say it. But then you're like, oh, wait, okay, I'm in the same shoes. So, yeah, I understand. So I'm like, okay, I got to kind of calm down.
I want to get your take on something, because if Grush is talking about a pact or an agreement that has been made with some non-human intelligence, and by all means you think he's a credible guy, what he's talking about is credible.
I know for a fact he's credible, and like I said, there's things I know that him and I have discussed that I'm not going to go into. That is, but yeah, he's 100% legit, guys, and it's scary.
Well, how does that play in?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not afraid to say this. I don't know. I wasn't there when
I'm actually happy you said that.
I don't, because it's the truth. I don't know. No, the kind. It's not really frustrating. What people need to understand is that I don't have the answers for everything in this UFO world. The only thing I'm an expert in is the situation I was in, and then even the information I'm being provided. I'm not an expert in that because that's something that I cannot publicly share fully 100% until I can provide the evidence to support that. And even then, I'm not in the program. I don't have access to it at any point that I wish to go do things and see for myself. It's only on these guys' terms. And it's only when things are safe enough to do so. So I'm only an expert when it comes to my testimony, and that's it. I don't know what happened in 1933 or 1947 or 1954. I can tell you what I've heard. Okay.
Right.
And what I have heard is through other sources about that agreement that, yes, in fact, it was legit. And as a matter of fact, I heard where the meeting spot of that happened, and it's in somewhere in the area near to where this installation was, just so you know. Within about 1,000 miles. Okay. I'm just gonna say that, but but if these people that I know that are credible are saying that that's legitimate, and these same sources confirmed to me about Jonathan Wagan's event that he was in 1997 with that crash retrieval in Peru was 100% legit. And I talk to Jonathan on a regular basis, guys. He is somebody that he went through hell. He got arrows even from the same as the Marine Corps, from other Marines that are trashing him too. And the fact is, even his guys wouldn't even come back him up. And I understand that. I understand why. I mean, I know my guys won't either. I get it. I 100% understand. And I'm hated for it. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. And I've got to play my cards as due. That's what I get to endure by making the decision I made. But
I was going to ask.
The truth will come out, and it did.
I was going to ask that, and I know that I know the answer, unfortunately, because we've already talked about it. Right. But for the audience, what are the chances one of your Marines has a change of heart?
They got too much to lose. They got kids. They got families. They got careers. They may be, if they're on their deathbed, and they may say that it was legitimate. That might be the only part. But until then, my personal opinion is I don't think they will. If that was the case, I think that I could have gotten a couple of them, because I talked to two of them. I used to anyway, almost every day. And after I came forward, that was when basically it ceased.
They were like, yeah.
They were mad. They told me they were pissed off. And I don't blame them. There's other people trying to find out who they are. I'm not giving their names up, because I'm not going to have them go through the same shit that I'm going through.
No.
If I was, so here's the thing, I understand why people don't come forward. I get it. And you know what? If you're in a position where you got information and you think that you want to come forward, I'm going to tell you, come forward on the back end, but don't go public unless it's something that needs to really, really, really be public, because you're going to face hell like we all have.
Right.
It's not fun. It's not a fun place to be. It is really not an enjoyable place to be. And that's why I don't talk about my main business, because I don't want people calling out my locations and trying to figure out where I'm at, try to get interviews, or try to harass my staff, or try to show up into my locations trying to talk to me. Or, most of my employees don't even know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't, they can believe in whatever they want, but at the same time, business is business, and that's how I see it, and that's what's going to stay there. I don't want this getting in touch with my business.
Yeah.
That's not what this is for. So, but I understand 100% why they don't want to come forward, and they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. Right. Until there was some safety in place, real safety, I mean, where their careers aren't going to be tarnished, or where their families are not going to be harmed. I don't have kids. I got a wife that I care for, obviously. My dad, my immediate family in that respect, yes, I do. But, when it comes to kids, that's a little bit different.
Right. It is. Yeah. As a parent, it makes sense why.
Now, if I had children, I probably wouldn't have not came forward, just so you're aware. I wouldn't have not ever come forward if I had kids.
Yeah, and it makes sense. You protect them at all costs. At all costs. That's your job as a parent, is to protect them at all costs. Correct. And I do, in our conversations, man, I worry about your safety, and I don't want to say that to scare you or anything, but then I worry about the safety of David Grush as well. right? Same
Oh, yeah.
reason. But you guys have, made yourself public enough where if something happened, there'd be far too many questions. And
Well, that's exactly
trust
it.
me, yeah.
They don't want to make us into a martyr essentially over this, which is the other thing.
And
So
I would literally, I wouldn't stop until I figured it out.
no,
Because now I
there's a
know
lot of,
you. And
there's a lot of
yeah.
people even in the government that are in the same boat. So trust
Do
me
you
when I
have
say,
contingencies?
oh yeah,
Okay.
not going to go into detail. I'm not going to unravel the plan, so to speak, but I do have contingencies. I got some good people looking out for me. I've got measures of my own that, would probably spend a little bit too much money on, but my safety is important for myself. I have a business to run. I've got employees that rely on me, and that's my focus, and that's what I strive to do every day. I work for them. I work for my customers, and that's the only reason why I'm successful.
I
So,
love it.
you
I love
know,
it.
so, these operators also have children, by the way, too. And that puts them in a tough spot because these sickos would kill their own guys. Some of these insiders had told me flat out that they could literally lie on the ground bleeding there and that these other guys would just step over their corpse as they're bleeding out, not render aid or nothing. So it's one of those things that it's disheartening to hear that. But what I'm hearing more and what I'm tracking more is the fact that there's a lot more good people in this group. So ultimately, what needs to happen is that they need to flip the script. And frankly, we need to do it soon. Now, mind you, they're doing their own method of disclosure to an extent, which is safer because they are firsthand with this stuff. Like the installation I went to, they could literally blow this whole thing open if you were to take a group of people there. And let's
In
just
an
say
afternoon.
all the doors were unlocked. And, at free roam of that base, for example, everything that people think is at a base like that is there. And they could, if you get Congress or even, Congressman Burchett to go in there and he was to see that, and he'd be like, yeah, okay, now it makes sense. And they would see everything.
And trust me, guys, we are working on it.
Well, not that level yet, not getting him into these areas because that's suicide.
But that's the road that disclosure has to take, is what you said, is these guys need to flip the script.
Yep.
They need to basically, because you don't want to call it committing treason because it's not.
No, it's not.
The treasonous act is the one that's being done.
Correct. That's stealing your guys' taxpayer money to literally fund this.
Exactly. And again, they are attacking and they are calling beings from the sky who could help us, who could teach us, and instead they shoot them down and they retrieve their asset, right? Their toy at the end of the day that they can tinker with and try to steal the technology. So instead of asking nicely, it's the human way. It's the forceful.
Well, it is. It's no different. This is how I see it. It's like me driving one of my cars. Because I have nice cars. That's my thing. I'm a gearhead. That's honestly why I like business, is because I can buy cars. You know what I mean? And I go through, I literally only hold on to a car for about a year before I sell it. I'm trying to flip it. But these ones that I got now, I don't think I'm going to do that because nobody else has at least a couple of them. So I just like having stuff that's very unique. So it'd be no different from me driving into a poor part of town and somebody sticking a Glock in my head and pulling the trigger and taking my car. That's literally how I see it, because it's literally what it is. The only difference is you're using somebody else to flag that person down, such as, okay, go ahead and stand in front of that car so they can stop, and then I'm going to come from the side and shoot them, and then pull them out of the car, and we're going to go for a joyride. That's literally how I see the same operation. So I don't see it any different. So, the problem with this, though, too, is I don't get into much of the drama with this community, with the UFO community or any other community for that matter. Frankly, the UFO community hates me because I don't talk about being an alien contactee or an abductee and talking about ETs and all that kind of stuff. So I don't care what they think.
Yeah, you don't really get into like the.
No, I reached out to MUFON. I got 0 back because I don't want to listen to, somebody who can tell them this difference between ET craft and actual reverse engineered, because I've seen one,
Right. Well,
And
that's what I want to talk to you about is, so when you described the craft, you described it as having this low, because I was going to say, for people who have seen UFOs, do you think that low electrical hum and the paneling and just the way it was shaped kind of gave it away as human back engineered?
yeah, because it looked manufactured.
Right. And the ET craft that we often hear, they're usually like molds, like everything is
Correct.
one, right? So
That's any indication that was manufactured. Now, some of these insiders who have done these crash retrievals from shooting these ones down, that's what they talked about them looking like, was completely seamless. And they just fall out of the sky when they get hit with an EMP. Now, the scary thing I will tell people that I found out was some of these people that do these crash operations, when they do get to the craft, sometimes they get zapped by the craft with a beam of some sort. They can't see it.
what?
But sometimes it's fatal. Sometimes it just knocks them on their ass, but that does happen. So if anybody...
They just take the chance. They're like, 50-50?
Well, they don't even know it happens until that actually happens, so it's like a surprise.
God.
Now, so anybody says that like, oh, well, ETs don't harm humans. What is that?
That's a defensive measure, I would say.
And I don't blame them for being defensive. I mean, it's shit. That's so
Dude,
that
you just made me a brick falling out of the sky. I'm going to protect myself.
Correct. So it's one of those things too, because, there's other whistleblowers. I'm not going to mention names, but there's other people I know in the inside of these programs that have talked about that, and they've never talked before until that happened. So hearing their testimonies and everything like that is like, okay, now the commonality is set. And if I'm hearing it from the people that are literally doing this day in and day out, when they actually do these crash retrievals of these non-human intelligence, and they're saying the same thing, then obviously what they're saying is true. These guys are not bullshitters. That's not how they play. These guys want this to come out. They want to do it safely. And that's why they're kind of giving me an IV drip of knowledge with this, to get me to basically understand what it is first, and then put it out to the public and kind of get people to understand it. So, I think it's heinous. I don't agree with it. But, if they're going to defend themselves, they're going to defend themselves, and they have every right to do so.
Absolutely.
So, but they've talked about the craft being seamless.
Do you think that's what stops in some way? Like, do you think that's what stops a non-human intelligence initiating contact with us on a global scale?
Okay, let me ask you a question. If you were walking through a neighborhood and you were with a group of your friends, and your group of your friends got their asses kicked really bad, you were able to get away, would you want to go back to that neighborhood again?
No, of course
No, you
not.
wouldn't. Do I blame them to feel the same way? No.
Right.
I don't. They don't. The problem is that they know that we're not all like that. That's why they're still around. That's why they make contact with people who make contact with them in a good way. Now, but the problem is that everybody's like wanting this to come out so fast and so fast. I agree with that. But what everybody's not thinking about is what to do when it does. Who's going to manage the programs? Who's going to manage the craft? Who's going to do all the protocols and everything like that literally these other programs are doing, which are successfully doing it. So let's say if you were to take it out of the hands of these guys, and then all of a sudden the government doesn't know how to do anything with it, then it just sits there. There's no actual research being done. I doubt these guys aren't going to talk unless they're bribed to say, hey, you're not going to be executed, or you're going to go to prison, for treason or whatnot. But the instance with that, it's kind of concerning, because then you're like, okay, well, then does it go back to these aerospace programs? And then all of a sudden they start throwing money at politicians again, and then basically sweeping everything under the rug. This happened. This happened before, guys. This happened in the 40s with craft. The government didn't know anything to do with it, so they put it to these aerospace companies, and the aerospace companies basically told them, hey, we can't crack the code. We can't do anything, even though they did, and they lied to the government. And the government's like, okay, we'll take your word for it. Don't invest. And this is the reason why we have that problem.
And that is why the military industrial complex was birthed. And when Eisenhower was on his way out, warned us that he, by the time he got there, had lost either it was in his terms or somewhere right before it, that control had been lost, at least from the president's perspective.
Let me explain how this happens. So in 1947, President Truman at the time, now I'm going to play some numbers here because I didn't know this until one of these insiders actually told me this. So Harry Truman was a 33rd degree Mason. He was also a 33rd president. Theodore Roosevelt was a 32nd degree, and he was also the 32nd president. Now I'm going to give you guys a hint. Anybody who's kind of pushing a globalist agenda, such as Truman, such as any president for that matter, you look at presidents who try to push the globalist aspect of us having to intervene in everything in the world, that's one of the biggest indicators, okay? So Truman signed an executive order basically allowing the CIA and the Air Force and this black organization to be created. This black organization was created solely for the purpose of crash retrievals, for researching and engineering, anything to do with these craft, even with the biologics. All right. So they had the conventional government or blue team that would basically be, the regular military we see, including special operations. They just basically do what they're going to do. They concentrate on their professions. They have this black organization, which was created by an Air Force higher up, by the way. So that should tell people that intertwines.
That's why it's everyone's always so curious. Why is the Air Force so silent?
Because they know. I mean, not everybody. I mean, granted, that's like, I know how that goes, but
the Air Force is the main perpetrator in this whole thing.
Yeah, but not everybody in the Air Force, obviously.
No, you can, yeah. And again, I think most people in the UFO community know that, or at least I hope they know this. Like when we talk about the CIA, not everyone in the CIA is a bad dude or a bad guy. Most of them are just wanting their pension and to go home at night.
That's true. It's 100% true. That's why they call it compartmentalization. All right, because it's only on a basis of who they can trust and who can be read into it and who can honestly either go with the deception. And that's really what it boils down to. If you literally can go against the Constitution of the United States of America, then you have a job on this organization's team. That's literally how they operate. If you're for killing innocent people, silencing people, using threats, intimidation, you're fine with all that kind of stuff, then you have a spot. But you have to go through the ranks and you have to go through the screening processes and you have to join the military.
So you have to be a psychopath.
Yeah, you have to be a full-fledged psychopath, man. You have to
narcissistic,
correct,
psychopath.
So since that was created, basically you had what was called changing of the guard. Obviously, everybody knows that, you have certain terms within a presidency or from somebody running for Congress or Senate, right? Their time comes to an end. And also because from the 40s up until this point, a lot of people who were aware of this group at that time have obviously passed on. So the knowledge of this organization started dwindling down to nothing. But so you had a president that knew about it, which was Clinton, and he was waved off of it. But he knew for a fact this black organization existed. So it's alarming because you have people that people think is the most powerful person in the world to an extent, when it's reality they're just a figurehead. And political interests are the one that control their motives, and this is the other unsettling thing I found out about Congress and the Senate and a bunch of other people. They have what's called a uniparty, and all they care about is seeing green. All they care about is money. They don't care about doing anything right for you and I as American citizens. They don't care about any of that. They just like the quote unquote power, even though they don't have power. It's just an illusion. They have handlers, they have people throwing them money. I mean, that's control right there. That's corruption in effect, right? So when you see these politicians trying to go and try to impeach people like a president, why do you never hear about it again? Because they don't have any power. The power is the ones throwing the money at them, controlling them. That's who has the fucking power. That's all this game is. This whole thing in DC is a dog and pony show to an extent. You got good people who are trapped in the system who literally went into wanting to do the right thing, and now they're segmented into their own group. They're kicked out of the party, so to speak, right? So now they're these little outliers of politicians who want to do the right thing, but then you have this big group of people who just care about money. That's really what it is. So they're constantly fighting each other in that understanding. So I get where Congressman Burchett's coming from, and among others. So
I mean, it's no secret. Like look at these people like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, who their salaries are, I mean, they're pretty hefty, but
right.
they're not. They're worth almost 1,000% more than their salary equates for, and that's because of insider trading and using their positions of power to bet against the system and for this against companies and for it's criminal.
Well, it is, but here's the alarming people, or here's the alarming thing. Why are people still voting for them?
That's the crazy.
Why can't people use their brains? Your vote does something. I'm not confident about nowadays, but if that is really the case, and it still does, you fucking use your head. Actually look into who you're voting for. Who gives a shit if they say mean tweets or something stupid? Who cares? Everybody says stupid shit. I say stupid shit all the time. That doesn't mean that, okay, if they're actually for you and trying to help us in this situation, then that's what it should matter at the end of the day, not what you feel. This person made me feel upset. There's a lot of people going to make you feel upset. Does that mean you should stop? Does it mean you should stop using your brain? No, it's not how it works. The problem is now, I mean, the system engineered itself that way too. That's why there's so much division in this country. I saw my grandfather today, and the way that he was talking about his military experience and how everything that was, I grew up in the wrong time. I wish I'd have grown up during his time. I feel like some days I was born a few thousand years too late.
Yeah, I think we all think that.
But, it's one of those things. It's like I've never seen so much division on stuff. And it's stuff that doesn't even realistically matter. It really doesn't matter. Like what you do with yourself is with yourself. By all means, you feel good doing it, then do it. As long as it's not harming anybody, you're not scamming people, and it falls into something that's ethically right for yourself. By all means, handle your life. It's your life. It's not anything for me to say how you're to run your life. I can only give you advice. I want everybody to be successful. I want everybody to be rich. I want everybody to have that luxury, because in my personal opinion, money's not the root of all evil. It's the person that gets the money, and you figure out what they do with it.
Yeah.
So
I would say so.
If you're going to go into an aspect of looking at the money, you're already going to have desperate people that are known to be desperate. And most of the time, people in Washington, D.C. are that trait. People in corporate positions, for example, are in that trait. All they see. I mean, I'm in that trait too, but the difference is I know the difference between morality and corruption.
I was gonna say, yeah, you have morals. You have a moral compass.
I can't. The reason why is because I would ask myself, and I have very respect for my grandma who passed on a couple years ago, but often I ask myself the question is, what would she think if I was to do something? Or what would my father think? What would my wife think?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that kind of gets me to kind of like question if I should be doing something I shouldn't be doing. And if it falls into any kind of principle like that, then yeah, I'll do it. I'll do something good with it. But if it's something along those lines, then, I wish more people had kind of that mindset, because let's just say, and I've had the thought, I don't know how far this would ever go, but I've had the thought where maybe I could get into politics, maybe I could run for Congress, but I know I'd be up an impossible battle because I'd be fighting people who are corrupt to the core. And I'd be trying to blow the lid off this issue too. And I'd be trying to do things for veterans. I'd be trying to do things for the American people. I'd be trying to do things, basically what every other politician would tell you to do, I would do. And it's hard to separate myself from that, because then all of a sudden you get looped into, oh, well, they said they're going to do this and they do this. They don't do that. You know, a lot of these politicians are self-funded too, which blows my mind. A lot of them are business owners and entrepreneurs, and then they get the bug of getting more money, and then all of a sudden they fall into that corrupt bubble. And
yeah. And honestly, it's like a vicious circle. And it just keeps churning out. People often wonder why are the only two candidates, or why do we have the choices that we have for president? It's either Biden or it's Trump. They think that way. Like, you know what I mean? Why do you think it's only these people that want this job, right? Because this, it's not a lot of smart people want the job.
Correct.
Because they know it's just not. Every president looks like they aged 20 years in their 4 years or 8 years.
They're basically they're nonstop. They have to be. It takes a certain personality. That's why I think, my personal opinion, Trump was good for that. But this country is run off of a process like a business. And who would want you? I mean, if I would, some people get very awestruck about Trump. The only thing I would pick his brain about is business, because the guy knows business. That's his background. That's what he does very well. I would love to see what his mentality and his mindset, and kind of like get into the nitty gritty of that. I don't give a shit about politics, but what I will say is that I was disappointed to hear that if you wanted an endorsement from President Trump and you're a congressman or a senator, you know how much you have to pay him? About $1 million to get an endorsement. So is that any better than people he's slamming to say they're corrupt? I don't think so. You guys are all in the same boat. You guys are all trying, like, well, you got all this money, then why are you trying to run for office? Right. If I had billions of dollars, I wouldn't be a president.
No, I'd be enjoying myself.
That's exactly it. So, you know, you got to, and this is what I've been paying attention to do is like morals, or like where people's mindsets are about stuff like that, and see where they're coming from and see what they're actually going to do. And can I say that he's done a lot for the country in the past couple of years? Yeah, he has. But there's a lot of good things that a lot of people do that are in positions of power that might not align with our personal views. You know, and
right. I mean, I don't agree with Tim Burchett on many issues, but
exactly it. Even with his version of disclosure, like the whole bill with that, I didn't agree with it because it's 2 pages. It's not really thorough. You can't. I mean, even with Schumer's type of stuff. I mean, yeah, his was more thorough, but they try to base stuff something that already existed, and look how that went.
Right. Are you talking about the JFK preview?
Correct. Yeah. So, you know, why are you going to base off something that failed? I mean, isn't that like trying to construct a bridge that, you know, caved in on itself, killed a lot of people, but yeah, we're going to design the same bridge and try to use the same bridge for the same result?
Right.
I mean, the definition of insanity. So you're going to do.
I think eminent domain was reaching way too far to start.
You know what it did? It's genius. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because
it got my interest.
Because it exposed the people that were against it, and exposed the people who are in bed with these programs, not nearly to an extent of like being inside these programs, but who are being paid by these contracting companies and these groups. You know, so it told us exactly who's on what side of the fence.
It did show us our enemy.
Correct. And we already know now who that is. We already have a plan B in place and a plan C and a plan D just in case. You know, so now we actually know, because everybody thought that this was just going to be a one and done thing. No, that's not how this works. This is like tug of war. So now that we know what we're up against, we know who we're up against. Now we're actually able to be surgical and actually do things that are actually going to get the result that we need. So it was more of a way to put it's like playing poker or something where you're putting your hand out there and seeing what, who's got the bigger hand essentially.
Right.
That's kind of what it was. We saw that they can't do a poker face because they have to react to obviously this measure. So now that they don't have a poker face, we know exactly what side of the fence they're on. So it was a great move. And guess what? We found out. So if they
And
thought
we can build on it too. We can we can
Exactly
propose
it.
the thing every single year.
So everybody thinks that it was out of the works and we have our tails between our legs. No, it was strategy and it was meant for that reason. It
That's
wasn't
actually such a good outlook.
Well, yeah, because that's what really happened. It wasn't literally to try to get disclosure to happen. It was trying to literally force the hand of them to see what side of the fence and who was going to oppose it and who wasn't. It was literally trying to see what door are we going to go through with this.
Right.
That's
Disclosure is imminent. It's just
Correct.
which path are we taking?
Correct. And we're going to use the government to do this, or we're going to use other assets. And it's going to probably do both. It probably may go into other assets I can't talk about. But needless to say, that was the whole point of that measure. It wasn't really to be successful with disclosure, guys. And as far as I'm concerned, and everybody needs to understand this, disclosure already happened. It happened a long time ago. But everybody's too dense to see that, okay, I need something physical proof. Well, physical proof's all around us. But if you're going home, you're going and working a job. Now, the only reason why I know so much as I do is because now I'm in this world. I'm now in this fight, so to speak. That's the only reason why I know as much as I do. But if I was going to work and I was coming home, I was watching television, I wasn't doing anything on this degree, I wasn't a whistleblower, then I wouldn't know anything. I wouldn't be exposed to that. So you guys literally have to go do the research and literally look for yourselves, because we're not going to sit there and hand it to you guys. I don't know everything, I don't want to tell everybody something that they might not be true.
Right.
And so that's why I go off of the people that really arm me with the information. I can only go off of the experience I had in 2009. I can tell you exactly what happened, obviously, which was what I've been doing. That's what I'm an expert in. But I do not take other people's word for it unless they can back it up in a sense. And when it connects the dots, or when people can show me things, and that's exactly what happens with these insiders. And that's why I said at the very beginning, careful what you wish for, because it really, really, really flips your world upside down. Especially for me.
I think you've said that to me. I mean, even in our private talks, be careful what you wish for,
right?
Because, chances are, truth is scarier than fiction.
Well, that's exactly it. And I hate the fact that that I have to be quiet about certain things. I really do.
And I think I've said it in countless podcasts. I know that. I always knew that so we're going to have, now I'd like to get your take on this because of your views and how it's affected you. And because this whole thing is, you're smack dab in the middle of exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to meet the government or whoever is behind this halfway to a degree. There's got to be some amnesty. We can't go in pointing the fingers.
That's a given. And that's what was something that was orchestrated. But the problem with that is the amnesty that they're giving them is not necessarily enough. Now, what I will tell you, some of the insiders I've talked to and still talk to on a regular basis, is that they got families to take care of. That's their priority. And unfortunately, it's not like they can just sit there and leave this organization and retire and be like, okay, I don't have to talk about this. They're going to be surveilled. They're going to be threatened. They're going to be watched. They're literally going to have a rough time trying to live outside of this. And there's a reason why a lot of these people are a lot older than I thought they were. They're not my age. They're a lot older, so it's one of those things that it's like a gang. Like when you're in there for almost your life. And you can't separate because you have that risk of being compromised in that degree. And then all of a sudden your family's going to have to pay for it. So I understand 100% why they choose not to, but if you go to a point where they're taken care of, let's say they get into some sort of witness protection. Now, mind you, the assets that this group has is beyond that. And that's why these people don't fall for the bait, such as trying to come forward and go through the provisions and everything like that, because it's almost laughable. If you got an organization that's more powerful, that has unlimited assets, that can pull money anywhere, There's nothing that's going to stop them.
And again, you said, I mean, these guys, these we talk about these dumb operators, but there's a reason that this program, oh, my camera must have died. There's a reason this program still exists and it's still secret. They are good at what they fucking do.
Correct.
And they have their hands in media, Hollywood, like Michael said earlier, they have their hands everywhere and they know how to sow disinformation.
Correct. They're masters of that. They master the dark world. They master secrecy. That's what they're very good at. And that's exactly what they've been experts in. Now, when it comes to light, like the truth, they have a problem with that because obviously they master the dark. You know, even if you look at the Reconnaissance Office, which has a lot to do with this stuff, by the way, they have a slogan that says, "We own the night."
Ooh.
What does that tell
How
you?
more spot on does that get?
Correct. So
like literally, it's eerily
correct. And there's a lot of people in NRO that are good people, you know, just like any organization, you know, but there's some parts of it that intersect into this and create it to be a problem like it is, you know. So it's
absolutely.
So hopefully people listening to this interview kind of get to know me more on a personal level and understand that I'm just another person in this world, guys. I don't think of myself anything special. I don't think I'm like this person who's going to blow it all or, you know, save humanity. I just think my part had a little bit to do and help connect the dots to an extent. And now that I've got a position where I'm in to actually help and do this, that's all I'm trying to do. I'll talk to people. I'll talk to anybody, you know, because I want people to learn. I want people to know the truth, you know. So I don't, you know, there's other people who try to take this and try to say, "Oh, I'm too good for everybody," and you know, I don't view myself as that. I think anybody in disclosure shouldn't have that mentality because all of us, you know, the problem is you have certain people in this community, even among whistleblowers, who think that, you know, it's going to take them running the ball to the end zone. It's taken all of us as a team of whistleblowers, as a team of people on this disclosure. I'm talking about Danny Sheehan. I'm talking about Dr. Greer. I'm talking about Lou Elizondo, David Grush,
everybody.
It's going to take every single one of us to do this. And the only way we can do this is obviously bypassing the government and showing public disclosure first and allowing the public to actually, understand that, you know, if we bypass the government, I mean, maybe humanity, not even just Americans, but humanity can hold their public officials accountable for stuff they already know.
And wouldn't that be a surprise? You know, something common to unite the civilian world around, right? It doesn't matter your race, creed, religion, or background. It's something we're fighting for, not only our origin story, but we're fighting for our sequel, right?
Yep.
Who gave the rights to the human of the human race to these people in power and that wield it and have dick measuring contests, like you said earlier. We need to take back what's ours.
Well, that's the only way that this is going to happen. Everybody has to be on deck with this. This can't just be us. It just can't be, you know, a couple of us trying to do this.
But they've kept even the UFO community factionalized. You talked about how it all needs to be us running the ball into the end zone. Yep. You know, Lou Elizondo, and you know, to his credit, the guy, you know, great, whatever, you know, you got that background, great. But him and Greer point the finger at each other all the time, calling each other charlatans. And it's like they both have the same lawyer. It's like, can't we all get on the same team for once? Like, all the factionalism is what keeps us.
Well, that's exactly why I get frustrated with it. Because here's the problem. How are we any better than them? If we're literally doing the same shit. Now, I'm not going to cast shade on Dr. Greer or nothing. I think he's a great guy. He treats me with nothing but respect. You know, he's nice to me. He's literally a good guy to me. And that's all I can go off of, right? how he does his business. I know he does real estate. He does other things that he gets his money and makes his livelihood, guys. He doesn't get it from doing these events. Now, I will say that it helps fund what he's trying to do because it takes a lot of money to actually put things into motion and to talk to people. People just are not willing to talk to you all the time, and I can't say the same thing for us, but I'm talking about the people that Greer associates with.
Yes.
So you have to buy people's time. And
in that world, yes. At that level, yes.
So, I mean, that's what he does. It's networking too. But the issue is I just don't understand the drama. I get that people point their fingers at each other, but it's like, why? If we're all trying to do the same thing here and we're trying to, everybody's got to make a living. Everybody chooses to make a living in a different way. I get that. So I just wish that the animosity between everybody could just literally end itself and be like, okay, we're on the same plans. How about we just agree to disagree and just move forward? That's what I wish that they could say.
Yeah. Agree to disagree, but let's move forward, have conversations like adults. That's why I've had guys like Jeremy McGowan, Mick West. I've had them on the show. We need to have conversations with people we don't always agree with. It's what allows us to move forward and challenge our own belief system. And maybe we don't have it all right.
We don't. I know for a fact we don't.
So
we can barely figure out stuff to even have our economy run smooth and without corruption, everything like that. Who are we to say that we're experts and stuff like this? Who's to say that we can't manage this appropriately? I don't think we can. It might be my skewed view to say that I just see things that way.
Well, I think we need government. Yeah, we need structure.
I
we
need that. But what I'm saying is I don't think that the ways that they're thinking it should be done. I think there's different measures that need to happen. I think full transparency of it, because you're talking about your tax dollars. Like if you're an investor in the stock market, you have a right to see where your funds are going, right? You see what it does. You see how it multiplies or you lose it. I think the same thing should be like, okay, well, if you paid this much in taxes, this is where your money's going. I think it should be transparent 100%. Because if you understand that you fund the government, I'm just going to say this. There is no law that requires you to file your taxes every year. Now, as a business owner, it's a lot different. Obviously, there's things that I agree to as a business owner that I can't use that, right? But if you're knowingly funding a terrorist organization, for example, you can get a lot of trouble for that.
Yes.
Why is it okay for American citizens to have their money stolen from them and used for other things instead of actually making our country better and giving us better stuff? We're so focused. Now, I will say that there's other politicians that have interests in other countries, such as Ukraine, that have oil companies out there that are using taxpayers' money to put security measures out there and to keep their businesses alive so they can keep raking in millions of dollars a year. I will say that that's happened, so
there's a lot agreed in this Ukraine.
And I will say the best thing I can tell people is follow the money.
Follow the money trail, and you will always
It's a cliche, but it's an actual truth. And it needs to be done, and people need to realize that, yes, if they're following the money, they're going to find out everything that they need to. You're going to find out who's corrupt. You're going to find out who's not. You're going to find out what the intention of that is. So I encourage people to do research.
And I'll give you a couple key places to look, right? So we're going to key places to look places like Lockheed Martin, right? Mm-hmm. Places like Northrop Grumman. These places that clearly have a vested interest in keeping this silenced and funding politicians in order to keep that circle silent. Follow the money, follow the funding, follow it all, and you will find out some dark truths about our system. And I think if our founding fathers, you bring up Freemasonry, I think if they could see what the country turned into after what they designed it to be, was something that adapts to the time instead of stays stuck in its ways, right?
Right.
I think they'd be rolling over, right, in their
No,
graves.
they would, but you know, the interesting thing is I found out one of these companies is actually trying to sell off their NHI assets to another company.
Well, that's it's a shell game right now too.
Well,
I mean, I can't imagine.
Here was another thing that was brought up. And this also couldn't, I mean, let's just say you're guilty minded for saying this. And I'm talking about this aerospace company. I'm not going to say the name of it, but they had literally said, why is it any of the government's business of what we have?
Huh.
You know what? And how can they take what we have? Well, the problem, assholes, is you're using taxpayers' money to use that to literally engineer this stuff. That's what you're doing. You're trying to say that something costs a couple $2 billion when it doesn't. And you're using the rest of the money and literally siphoning it out of the black budget. I know that happens for a fact because they told me in detail how they do that.
Yeah.
So
Burchett says it, you know, with the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit since the invention of the Pentagon and audits. And it's like, if you go deep digging into it, you see they're charging $1,000 for a screw.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you look at it in that sense. And, so for them to say something like that, it's like, okay, you guys definitely hit the nail on the head saying that you have the stuff. You're not just going to say that. Nobody'd be like, okay, we're not going to say anything because that's the best thing is using your Fifth Amendment right, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So for them to go for that measure and say, well, why is it right? Well, guess what? You're using taxpayers' money. That's not
with government contracts.
So that's why it's theirs, because you're contracting for the government. That's what you're doing. You're not doing it for your own accord now. They're doing it for their own accord now, but they're doing it on the back end that the government doesn't know about. And that's where we get into this whole mess that we're into.
Right. So again, because like people don't realize that the government doesn't actually do anything. Like they do. It's a system though. The government doesn't make its own computers. The government doesn't make its own software. The government doesn't do that. They put contracts out, companies bid on them, and this is the military industrial complex.
Right.
That's how it works.
Correct.
And in the secret world too. That's why Lockheed's able to get read in on these deep black programs and have the technology that they have. But to bring it to the investor's perspective, does the investor have the right to know that they have these secret assets?
If it's your taxpayers' money, I think you should.
Exactly.
I think 100%, because like I said, it's your money that's being taken from you. And if they're using it in illegal means, I wouldn't, I mean, it's like finding out that you're donating $20 a month to have somebody executed in a third world country, for example.
And you had no idea, right?
You had no idea. And you're like, oh God, like I'm going to keep giving money to this because they tell me it's good. And then all of a sudden you find out it's used for something barbaric. That wouldn't make you feel good, because then you feel like you're the cause. When you're not the cause, they're just using your money to do it. So the government, in a sense, is a middleman to hand money from people to these companies, and to contract for them to build stuff that they need, right? But then you have greedy people that obviously put things in perspective for themselves, and they want, these companies make money on their own behalf too. They do it all the time. They also have spin-off patents that they've also put out too, and that's how they make a lot of money. So everything kind of gets intertwined with that. So that's mainly the thing is that, the whole thing with this amnesty, which I was agreeing to, was the fact that, okay, that gives them a time frame to actually relinquish things before it ends up going to plan B. So plan B essentially would be the eminent domain. Now, if they were to go to an installation and say, okay, but we're here to take a look at what you got, and all of a sudden we found the stuff there, then all of a sudden this company's barred from contracting ever again.
Right.
They lose billions of dollars a year.
Right.
So, and it doesn't matter if you change your name, like Raytheon did. It doesn't matter if you file under a different name and give ownership to somebody else, because that's going to follow suit. Everything always leaves a patterns. That's what everything has to be recognized off of, our patterns. Patterns are what, this is why detectives are good at their job, because they analyze patterns of people. And if you're falling into a pattern of a suspect who murdered somebody in a similar way that thousands of other people have done it, you're probably going to do the same thing they've done because you same thought traits, you guys have the same personalities, whatever it is. So they're able to be accurate with that. Now, if we did the same thing with these programs or even these companies for the matter, and see what the patterns that they do off of that and analyze them very deep, then you're going to see what they're going to be able to do. You're going to be able to circumvent problems that may occur based off of that information.
Interesting. So again, it's all about following the money. It really
Correct.
is. And the contracts and following up on, so the government, again, we're going to have to, there's going to have to be a halfway point that's met. And ultimately, I think we're going to see, like you said, some mix of government disclosure, civilian disclosure. I think that is going to be the most likely end goal or end game in scenario.
I think the public needs to know first, because, and just like I said, my thinking with this is if the public knows about it first and everything's transparent, it allows us, because the founding fathers, who were Freemasons, most of them anyway,
most of them were.
What I love about being a part of this organization is the history of it. And, I feel like I get to share a part of that history to an extent. That's kind of one thing that I like about it, is I get to kind of be in the mix with that, kind of being somebody who's doing a revolution against the secrecy of this to an extent, right? Just like they did a revolutionary war against the British trying to occupy us, and we fought them off and basically said, hey, we're our own country and we're going to have our own bylaws and laws and our own beliefs, and everybody's going to be able to come here and live the life as they should, so having that kind of mentality is like, okay, now I understand. So I think if we get the people as it was intended to when the government was first established and created, that the people are the ones that basically oversee the government and we hold them accountable. And somewhere along the lines it got out of hand. I can't say exactly when, but then when you have the government that has its own military force, and then you have people who bought the government, certain people anyway, and then they allow other things to happen, then guess what that means? You lose control over it. So
and Eisenhower told us,
correct,
lost control. So
we as a people, and I mean as American citizens specifically with our government anyway, I think we need to be the ones that actually have this first. Because if people have it first, they know it's true, and this is something that's blown out wide scale. You don't have the government trying to circumvent everything and trying to dismiss or trying to filter things to be said, because that's what they do. Then guess what that means? It means that, oh, okay, now all the cards are laid out on the table. So how are you going to redact, and how are you going to lie to cover it up again? You can't.
Right. It will show it'll force their hand and force their true colors to be shown. Right. Again, it's similar to showing your enemy or unveiling your enemies through that legislation in a kind of a weird way. But we're approaching the 3.5 hour mark, and I hate to cut it off here, but I know we'll have plenty of more conversations. But for the time being, should we be worried?
Yes and no. I think we should be worried on the fact that the people we trust to put in position to handle this are not doing it. That's what we should be worried about. Because, like I said, I mean, if votes count as they say that they do, and I'm not confident that they do, because I know what corporate interests do. I know that a lot of people like to lie, cheat, and they do it for money. We got to be careful who we put in, and we got to hold people accountable. And, I'm not, I've heard Greer say this all the time, to get a hold of your senators and congressmen and do all that. They're not going to do anything. They got more important shit to do in their world. So this kind of gets thrown on the back end. So I wouldn't say be worried in that aspect. I wouldn't say in a negative sense, don't be worried. I always say keep up the support and keep following people like, Tyler here, who, they're about getting the truth out and putting understanding out to the public and getting some people to at least kind of connect the dots, so follow people like him, That's
Well, what
really
I meant, yeah, no, I really, 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 really appreciate that coming from you. But I meant, should we be worried about this program? Like,
so.
while is if it's continuing, I assume it's ongoing right now as we speak.
Let me
Should be worried.
put my mentality into it. I live right underneath of an airport, at least close to one. Do you think I go over every single day when I wake up or go to the bathroom, whatever it is? Oh, I got to worry about a plane falling out of the sky.
Right. Okay.
It's the same thing. If it happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I worry about it. Okay. What I will say is there's some stuff going on in the background that is being handled, and it's being handled in a correct way. It's slow, unfortunately, but things are in the works. And that's all I can say. And until I'm clear to talk about the remainder of it, and I really want to, because I have a problem with bucket mouth, and I just want to tell people everything. And I know some of these guys are the same way too, so it's kind of hilarious where we kind of have to ourselves and be like, okay, all right, we're not going to say this, So I just want people to know the truth, and I want the truth to be out. And I want people to stop losing their lives. I want these good guys to get out of this organization, and I want humanity to evolve in a way that is going to help us and help the planet and help our children of this planet as well. I don't have kids, but you know what? If I'm going through with this mission, then it means that I'm looking out for the betterment of humanity, and that I can live with that. I can take the arrows at the same time if that's my goal. I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, and you can leave the world a better place than you found it. I
100%.
think that's all of our goals, and it should be all of our goal.
100%.
Whether you have kids or not is a different, that's something entirely different.
Right.
I think we should all strive to leave the planet a little bit better than we inherited it or got it.
Right.
Because I mean, here, at least for me, I mean, I'm a believer in the eternal, the consciousness survives death. So I don't think it ends here. I don't.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of these insiders used to think otherwise until they came in contact with this operation, and it kind of taught them that there was an afterlife and things like that.
And that's what we have to unlock if we're just patient. I'm
gonna leave you off with this. All right. I imagine in a perfect world that if, let's say, we had ET come down or NHI come down, and they were to land on our planet somewhere, and the moment they do that, we are all, as human beings, going to be wrong about everything. And I mean our history. I mean everything that it made us, as humans to begin with, as what we understand our world to be. We're going to be wrong about what we think about the solar system, what we think about the universe. We're going to be 100% wrong. And, so that's a humbling factor in itself because, like I said, we only know what we experience. We only know what we're told. We only know
we only know what we're taught, like I've never been to outer space. I don't know it, I'm not a flat earth person, but like, again, I can see how flat earth people exist because like personally, I've never seen the earth from outside. So I get it. It's like, I get it.
I've had people even ask the same question, like, okay, well, like, I've never seen a UFO, so they don't exist. Okay. You ever seen a Titanic in person that's sunk at the bottom of the ocean?
Right.
I saw pictures of it. Okay. You know what else you see pictures of?
UFOs. Things in the sky that don't fucking that are not identified. And that is a great.
Some people have never seen the pyramids of Giza. Some people have never seen the Great Wall of China. How do people know it exists? Well, through other people. If you're not able to go there, you learn it through other people. You learn through people videotaping it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, this is what kind of frustrates too because of the hoaxers, right? Because there's some people who do good stuff with AI and CGI, and it's a mind-blowing stuff.
But that should be for entertainment and movie making.
It
shouldn't be for fucking submitting.
legitimate because you want to say that you got something. Come on. That doesn't help us by any means. It just worsens our cause here. It worsens it for the public too. Because then the public has a hard time trying to believe it. I understand 100% where they're coming from. I was the same boat. I didn't believe in this shit. I ridiculed people who believed in it. I said, "You're fucking crazy,"
Right.
But then I had my experience, and guess what? That completely flipped my world upside down in that regard. And I'm not the only one that's ever happened to. I know that there's other people who have similar instances to say, "Okay, my life changed." At least believing in this subject.
I call that the moment of conversion. It's when you go from either not knowing or straight up like denying to like I'm sorry, from believing or denying to knowing, right? It's like a moment of conversion. It's like, oh shit, okay, that's real.
Yeah.
Um,
And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people stand. Is like I said, they have to see it first, and then they'll believe it. And I understand where they're coming from. I'm not going to bash them to say that, but I'm saying
everyone will get there at their own pace.
In your own world, as far as what you're able in your capabilities, believe it first, and then you'll see it. But everything else, be skeptical. There's people trying to make money on this subject, hand over fist, trying to get rich off this shit. I don't agree with it. I will never make money off this. I will make money doing the right thing. I've had people pay me for my time because I had to fly out of state to talk to people. And that was good because at least I said, well, okay, if I'm going to sacrifice a day of work, so they understood that. Yeah. But I'm not talking about a significant amount of money.
And that's how it should be though.
Yeah. And they covered, they paid their expenses. I'm grateful for that. But that doesn't get me money. It doesn't make me live a lavish lifestyle.
No.
And Sean Ryan, the only thing he could do for us was accommodate our expenses as far as a hotel, and he reimbursed our plane tickets. That's it. I didn't want him paying for us.
Yeah. It's an honor. It's you're like you said earlier, your testimony is not for sale, but you will give it under circumstances.
I will.
Those were the circumstances that you agreed to.
Yes, and I'm not selling it because it's not meant to make money. I'm not going to have people monetize it and then try to legally bind me to a document that says I can't talk about it because they own the rights to it. That's how stupid this is. And
that was my problem with Doty. Rick Doty is his whole story is owned by Gaia.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm talking to him, like we can only go certain places because he has an NDA signed with Gaia. And it almost makes you second guess certain things. Like, again, I had a great conversation with him. I really like good guy in my mind.
You want to know something cool?
I do.
Next month, I'm going to be shooting a couple episodes on Gaia, at least 8 more, 4 of which are going to be with Dewey.
No fucking. That's why he brought you up.
Yep.
Listen.
So let me make this, like, I told the producer of Gaia and a bunch of other people, like, you're not buying my story. You're not giving me money. I'm not taking money. So for them to, because I've had people try to say, oh, I want to write a book about you. If I want to write a book, I will do it.
Yes, that's your story to tell.
And guess what I will do? It will be something that, guess what? Pay for fucking shipping. I don't care. As long as it gets from me to you, cover that. Or if you really need it that bad, like I don't care. But I don't have a desire to write a book. I don't have now, if they make a movie, when all this shit comes to fruition, all of a sudden I'm like, they try to portray me as this character, whatever it is, because they're going to do that and they can legally do that. And they're like, try to go, well, do you want to be in a movie? No, I'm not going to be in a movie. But I will do like I do with everybody else who tells my story, that I want them to stick to the facts of what I present. Don't blow anything out of it. Don't over exaggerate it, because that's not the truth. The truth is what I have recounted and have told people. I don't over exaggerate it. I don't try to play it down. I keep just tell people what happened. And if they can do the same thing, I've got complete respect for them. But if they try to make it and hype it up more than what it is, I'm sorry, but that's not how it works for me.
And again, much respect. And I know that we've talked about doing stuff, outside of podcasting, and you've been the utmost and upfront about your your thought process on this. So I can attest to the fact that that is how you conduct yourself outside of an interview, in life in general. But Mike, it's been such a good, I mean, this has probably been one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done. I think, I don't know why, it's something, it just, I don't know. You have a conviction about you, and
I mean, is because I'm just another person. I'm just literally it. I've told more about myself in an interview on this platform compared to any other interviews. And the reason why is because I want people to be able to identify that, yes, I have strengths. Yes, I've got a lot of fucking weaknesses too. I'm not a perfect person.
You're only a man.
You know, so I want people to be able to relate to me in those aspects, to say, yes, I know where I come from, and I remember that every single day.
Right.
I remember that every single day. So I want people to be able to relate to me in that aspect. I don't think of myself as this person, this person that gets put on a high, you know, oh, you're famous and all this kind of stuff. I don't think of myself that way. I'm just trying to do the right thing. And unfortunately, it's gotten the attention of a lot of good people and a lot of bad people. So, you know, and I can live with that. I've made the choices, and I have to reap, and I reap what I sow. And unfortunately, that's just how this is. And it's no other difference between making a choice and having the consequences or the advantages of that. So, you know, I like to talk to people, at least that want to get more clarity about things, because I think, like I said, humanity is entitled to this information. And I am going to go as far as I humanly and possibly can go with this until I can't. And that's either till they kill me because I say something I'm not supposed to, or it's till I leave this earth on my own accord, such as living a good life, and it's my time to go.
Right.
So
much love for that, man. And you know, we're definitely gonna have more discussions, and you know, you're always welcome here, anytime you want. But for the most part, you know, you don't have social media, you don't really engage on that kind of level. So you know, if people are inspired by you, what would you recommend they do?
Get in touch with you if they have anything intelligent to talk about. If they actually I don't want to sound rude to this, but you know how many people try to hit me up to ask about things I've already talked about?
Right.
That are already in depth. I'm talking about if it's something that's outside the box, or if something
that could fill in a gap or shed light on something. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. But if anybody's going to be negative or talk shit, then obviously I don't need to hear that. I don't care.
Yeah.
They're going to leave rent free, and they're going to have me in their head the whole time. And guess what? That's more punishment for them enough. I don't care. I don't think about that.
You're a good looking guy.
Right. Well, and I don't think about them when I'm doing business. I don't think about anything that they're doing. You know why? Because that has nothing to do. What I always tell people this, and I'm gonna really leave it off with this. Everybody, you guys are the fucking main character in your movie, the life that you call, or I should say, movie you call your life, right? So the key people that you love, that you respect, that you care for, are also the main characters. So why is it that a lot of people typically care for the extras in a movie, such as cab driver A, bouncer B, cab driver C? Why do people put so much focus on people they've never personally met or developed rapport with in a relationship and actually know on a personal level? Why do we care about them so much, or what they think? I don't care what people think about me in that way.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that I won't take the positive reinforcement and all that. I appreciate that. But honestly, it doesn't dictate.
You're not going to let the negative stuff get to you.
I don't let anything get to me because it's not coming from me.
Right.
My mentors and the people that help me on a daily basis, I care about what they think because they're directly involved in my life in big ways. I care about what my father thinks about me. I care about what my wife thinks about me. I care about these people that matter to me, which is a small group. As far as people I don't personally know, it doesn't dictate what I'm doing. Now, like I said, I will appreciate the positive aspects of it, and that will continue me to further myself along in a way, because it shows that I've got good support from good people.
Well, I will say this. I've never been reached out to more about any guest. I've never had so much outpouring of support for someone than I have had for you. So just know that you do have a lot of people in your corner
Appreciate it.
that are rallying behind you, and I'm definitely right there at the top because I have a vested interest. I like you as a person. I think of you as a friend. So I here's to the beginning, and here's to the next chapter, Michael. I can't wait to talk again. And
Yeah.
for everyone else, for listening in the future, watching now, if a couple people send some super chats, thank you so much. You guys are the reason that the show is able to continue. We're going to be doing more on YouTube and kind of, trying to equalize everything out. So again, next week's episode will be with Rick Doty. It's not live, but from there going forward, I'm going to start doing a lot more live episodes. So you know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. And then if you're listening on audio feeds, please leave a review if you can. It really helps more than you know. Algorithms eat that up. Written reviews on Apple. And if you want to go that step further, join the membership. I'll be uploading a lot of behind the scenes content for the Salem stuff that we just filmed literally today and yesterday. So that's going to be really fun. And like I said, love you all. And we can't do the show without you, each and every one of you. So just keep doing what it is. Keep looking to the sky. And if you got anything to talk about, my contact's always in the description below. We'll see you. God, I can't find the outro. See, this is this is a live moment, like a live radio moment that I wasn't prepared for. See, back when I used to do it live all the time, I'd have the outro ready to go. So when I did the speech, I could just click it. But now here I am in like this awkward. All right,
Okay.
guys.
More real.
Thank you.